With morning lessons over and done with, it was time for combat lessons to start. Layla had come over with Aaron by her side to Quinn. They weren't exactly friends now, as the two didn't really talk much. In fact, Aaron didn't really say much at all to anyone. However, over the last few days after searching for Peter together, they started to hang around each other more often. They had also practiced as a team together beforehand, and for the first time, Aaron had actually called Layla by her name. These were all huge steps forward in Layla's eyes, and before they knew it, the two of them would naturally just be around each other. The three of them headed off to the beast weapons class while Vorden had already left for the elemental class. Now, sitting in the room all alone was Peter, just blankly staring at the wall in front of him. Even his fake friends were no longer talking to him at the canteen. Earl and his gang had been avoiding him ever since Aaron had threatened them. They had also already gotten their use out of him and no longer needed him anymore. Peter continued to sit there and think back at all the stupid things he had done. If only he had done this differently. Why did he decide not to ask for help? Why did he agree to help them at the time? It had hurt back then and felt like he was going through hell, but right now he couldn't even remember what the pain felt like. As all these thoughts ran through his head, and he started clenching his hair in his hands. Every time a stupid memory came up, he would pull his hair, trying to forget it, as if he was pulling the memories out of his head. "Why?" Peter shouted as he pulled out a clump of hair. "Why?" he said again, pulling out another. His hands were now filled with parts of his hair. He could feel something running down from the top of his head. He had pulled so hard and so much hair that blood was starting to drip from his scalp. As Quinn was just about to leave the second-year building to head to the Beast Weapons Hall, he paused for a second right by the exit. This whole time he had been back. Not once had he set foot outside in the sun, and for the first time, he would be doing so now. He had asked the AI system repeatedly what the effects were, but he would never tell him. "Calm down, Quinn. You already know you won't die, so what's the worst that could happen?" "Hey, Quinn, is everything okay?" Layla asked, noticing he had stopped just by the exit. "Yeah, I'm fine," Quinn said as he took a step forward. Asterisk bang. Instantly, the effect of the sun had hit him. The rays affected him more than ever, and a pounding feeling was heard in his head. He stumbled a little, but soon caught himself. It took him a few moments, but he finally adjusted to the sudden feeling. "You're being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be reduced by 70%. 70? Are you freaking kidding me?" Quinn shouted in his head. Now calm down," the system replied. "I thought you would act like this, so I didn't want to say anything. At least I had a chance of fighting in the sun before. I thought if I increased my stats to at least 20, suck a few people here and there, I would be like a normal person in the sun. What am I meant to do now?" "Well, honestly, I never really had this problem before. Back at the kingdom, we had plenty of items that stopped the sun form affecting us. Just take a look at your inventory. That ring you were looking at is given to the weakest of our men." The system was suddenly revealing a lot more information due to the outburst. Whenever Quinn would ask the system who he was, or if there were other vampires out there, he would ignore him and pretend he never heard. However, Quinn needed to deal with one problem at a time, and right now, and the sun was an urgent one. "Look, I can see you're depressed," the system said. "How about this?" He then opened up Quinn's menu and went to show him the Shadow Skills tab. Out of the 10 skills, 3 had been unlocked, but 7 were still grayed out. You just want to be able to fight in the sun, right? You see the skill named Shadow Void? It costs a total of 20 skill points. I would recommend you unlock that next. The skill allows you to create your own space of shadows, blocking it from not only the sun, but outside viewers as well. Although it wasn't a permanent solution to Quinn's problem, it was a solution. While Quinn struggled to walk, Layla quickly came over and pulled out an umbrella over his head. She had kept it on her at all times for situations like these. Ha, Vorden, looks like I'm needed more than you after all, Layla thought. Suddenly, Quinn started to feel a lot better. The sunlight is being blocked. All stats will return to normal. Do you guys have to be lovey-dovey in front of me? Aaron said as she saw the two walking under the umbrella. We're not a couple. He's just feeling sick. The sun give him heat stroke easily. What a wimp, Aaron said as she walked off ahead. Quinn didn't know why, but Aaron's words always seemed to sting a bit more compared to when others said it to him. The three of them had finally arrived at the Marshall Hall, and no longer needed the umbrella. Once again, as he entered, he started to feel his heart beating faster than ever. He was nervous. The reason was simple. It was because of Leo. For some reason, Leo had asked that the next time the two of them met, to speak to him. Although Leo did say that he wouldn't hurt him, those words didn't exactly reassure him. The classes had begun as normal, with Leo asking the students to warm up by sparring with each other, but once again Leo had asked Layla to step away as Leo wanted to be his opponent. Leo then took Quinn to the corner of the room away from the others, making sure they couldn't hear their conversation. "Thank you for saving me in the portal world," Quinn said first, hoping to get on his good side by sucking up to him. "I was just doing my job. What happened to your gauntlets? There's no energy emitting from your hand. They broke in the portal world. I'm sorry. I'll pay you back." Leo raised his hand, telling Quinn to stop speaking. "Boy, there is no need. Those weren't expensive in the first place, but for something to break some beast gear, you must have fought against some beasts then." Quinn started to laugh nervously. He wasn't prepared for this and didn't really know how to answer. "Oh no, one of those rat beasts jumped at me, and all I did was lift my hand, trying to protect myself. The beast wouldn't let go, so I had no choice but to take them off and run." "I see," Leo said as he stood there silent for a moment. "Quinn, do you know they say when someone goes blind, their sense of hearing improves? Now let me be the first to tell you, that is all a myth. However, my ability does improve my senses, and I can hear your heart beating ever so loudly." Quinn gulped, as he was afraid of what the old man might say next. "Do you also know, they say that when a person is lying, their heartbeat changes ever so slightly, and they start to sweat more. Now, Quinn, the truth is, I don't care what you are, but I only have one question to ask you. Are you on humanity's side?" Quinn started to think about the question Leo had given him. It was clear that he knew something about him through his ability, and it was why he had asked the question in the first place. But rather than out him to his higher-ups or try to deal with him himself, he was asking a simple question. If I answer this wrong, will he attack me? Or maybe even turn me in? Quinn thought. But judging by what he had said earlier, if Quinn was to lie, he would be able to tell. Everything about the current human society made Quinn feel sick to his very core. It wasn't just the government or the military, but the originals as well. When his parents were fighting in the war, why did they choose to reveal themselves towards the end and only then share their powers then? Why did the military design this caste system that put everyone into categories? In a way, he wanted to see the current society fail. But did he want everyone to die? No. Did he want the Dalki to win the war? No, he didn't want that either. Now that he thought about it more, he was in an interesting position. He couldn't exactly call himself human anymore. If they found out what he was, would they accept him over to their side? Probably not. Humans were scared of the unknown. But two people already had done. Layla and Vorden didn't know what he was, and didn't stop speaking to him or treated him any differently. Quinn knew what his answer was. I'm on my own side, but there are people I want to protect on this side too. For a second, Leo just stood there silently. He continually looked at the purple flame burning around Quinn, and then he turned around and walked off without saying a word. I guess my answer was okay then, Quinn said as he let out a huge puff of air. He felt like any second now he was about to have a nervous breakdown. Get yourself a new weapon, kid, Leo shouted. You're going to need it for the portal expedition, and my offer still stands. Feel free to have a duel with me whenever you wish. The combat classes had ended, and Quinn didn't end up doing much in today's session. With no equipment of his own, he had to pick something else from the wall. But when he tried using a sword, he realized how much practice you needed before he could even become half decent at the thing. Using his fist just felt natural to him, especially since nearly all of his skills required him to use his hands. This meant more than anything that he needed a new set of gauntlets. Before leaving the Martial Hall, he asked to borrow the umbrella Layla had and decided to head to the library for the rest of the afternoon. There he would be able to use the public computers. On the way there, he opened up his system to check on a few things. Firstly, it was his crystal inventory. Right now, he had 16 basic tier crystals, 1 intermediate tier crystal, and 1 advanced tier crystal. The system shop had a set of intermediate gauntlets for him, and all he needed for them was 3 intermediate crystals. There was no requirement of what type. Then there was the advanced tier crystal that could only be used as a ring. He finally sat down on the computer and went on to the marketplace. He started his search to see what was the standard price for selling crystals. Right now, the basic tier crystals were useless to him. Before logging in to access the weapons section of the marketplace, he was to input his military ID number. This wasn't recorded by the system, but just proved that he was allowed to buy and sell weapons. The marketplace promised to scramble all information once confirmed and entered. If people were able to tell who was selling these items, then it would cause a big problem for the seller. Enter username ID. I'll just use the same one as my game. Bloodevolver. A standard basic tier crystal could be sold for 100 credits, an intermediate crystal 1,000, and an advanced crystal 10,000 credits. Right now, he was sitting on a gold mine. Some crystals sold for more, depending on the rarity of them or what they could be turned into. Next, he started to search for gauntlets. There weren't as many online compared to other weapons, but there was still plenty to choose from. He noticed that once he moved up from basic tier weapons, the description of each item would be quite significant. It would tell you what crystal was used to create the weapon, suggesting that it might have some other type of attribute other than strength. For example, some might have fire resistance if made from a beast from a hot planet, or ice resistant for one from a cold one. Let me give you a tip. The system said, place your hand on the computer and use your inspect skill while looking at the item. Quinn did as the system asked and was surprised by the result. Suddenly, he could see the stats of all the weapons that were in front of him. But how? Quinn asked. The system you are using itself is like a computer system. It scans the information the computer tells it and puts it into numbers for you to easily understand. Although it will only be able to tell you if the beast crystal is in the database. I tried my best to put as many different beasts as I could in there, but there may be some I have never seen. Quinn continued to search through the items, but something surprised him. None of them gave the same number of stats like the one in the shop. At most, the strength they provided was +5, while the intermediate weapon in his system was +6. Sure, it was only 1 strength of difference, but right now, that was a lot. The second thing was the price of the gauntlets. They ranged from anywhere between 6 to 8,000 credits. This was because it included the cost of finding all the crystals and also paying for someone to forge the weapon together. Even the basic tier weapons cost were around 2,000 or so credits. Quinn didn't even bother looking at any advanced tier weapons. He sat there and started to think for a while about what to do and what was the best option. Without a doubt, he needed a weapon before next week. In the end, he finally decided the best thing to do was to sell the advanced tier crystal, even though he was able to use it to create a ring that protected him from the sun. He needed 10 of the things, and not only that, it required a specific beast from a red portal planet, a place where students just weren't allowed to go whenever they wanted. It was basically useless to him right now, and the credits would be more helpful. Quinn then started to search for a deathbat crystal on the marketplace, hoping to figure out what price he could sell at, but to his surprise, there wasn't a single deathbat crystal up for sale. With no clue how much to sell it for, Quinn decided to look at other specific crystals and priced it around there. He did the base price of the crystal plus around 2,000 extra credits, selling it for 12,000 in total. And done. Now all I need to do is wait for it to be sold. Then I can buy 2 intermediate crystals and get the weapon from the system. Asterisk ding. It had only been a few seconds, but someone had already put up the money for the crystal. With it came a portal confirmation number. All Quinn needed to do was go to the storage unit and place the crystal in the teleporter. Once entering the confirmation number, it would teleport the item to the user on the other end. Somewhere in a dark room, a kid with his hair gelled backwards that looked to be a similar age to Quinn was on his computer browsing the marketplace. Come on, what happened to that guy? I paid him good money to get that crystal for me. I only need 1 more. The kid said. He never expected to find anything on the marketplace, but every day he would check just to make sure. However, the exact crystal he was looking for turned up. No way. And only for 12,000 credits. I have to buy this straight away. With no hesitation, the boy swiped his card on the computer next to him, confirming the purchase of the item. A man then appeared from the shadows and was stood next to the boy. Young master, if your father finds out you didn't get the crystals through your own effort, he will be furious. Every one of us had to go hunt those beasts as a trial for ourselves. The man said, my father thought he could stop me. Now with the ring, I can finally leave this place. He then looked at the computer screen once again. Thank you, Bloodevolver, you have made my day. If I ever meet you in real life, I promise I will repay this debt. After sending away the advanced tier crystal, it didn't take long for Quinn to receive the money. The portal delivery box confirmed that the item was real with a scan, and then with a flash, it was sent. At the same time, Quinn's watch made a ding sound. He looked at his watch, and 12,030 credits were all his. Never in his life did he think he would be able to acquire this type of money. His original plan was to obtain the Earth ability from the school. Then he would work hard and possibly be able to upgrade his ability to a power level of 3. After he could join a hunting faction and become a traveler, killing basic beasts and selling their cores. But even then, he would have had to kill 120 basic beasts to make the amount of money he had today. Before doing anything else, Quinn immediately put up the 16 basic Radiclaw crystals for sale. These didn't take long to sell either. There were always people and companies looking to buy them. If the beast crystals couldn't be used to make a weapon, they would be used as an energy source instead, powering up vehicles, lights, engines, and all sorts. Now the total amount of credits was 13,630 credits. He looked at the number again, and a smile couldn't stop appearing on his face. Logging back onto the marketplace, Quinn was now searching for 2 intermediate crystals. The shop stated that the gauntlets he was after didn't need any specific type, so he went ahead and purchased the 2 cheapest ones he could find at 1,000 each. It hurt him seeing his credits go down so suddenly, but this is what needed to be done. There's a need to spend money before one could make money. The better equipment would allow him to hunt stronger beasts and earn more money. Before heading back to the storage room to obtain his crystals, Quinn decided to search the marketplace a bit more to see if there was anything useful. He also looked at the items in his shop, but they all required specific beast crystals that were nearly impossible to find on the marketplace. That's when he realized the items in his shop seemed to be quite rare. Even when searching for a weapon or piece of armor similar, there were no matches found for these type of items. After searching and searching, he decided to fork out a load of money on a pair of black boots. He purposely chose a design that didn't look too fancy, but also gave him the best stats. That way, if others saw the equipment, they wouldn't think anything of it and wondered where Quinn was able to get the money from. After spending 8,000 on the boots, he now only had 3,630 credits remaining. As he walked over to the storage room, he couldn't help but have a skip in his step. Finally, he had arrived and entered the combination for both of his orders, and a few seconds later, a couple of large boxes had appeared in front of him. Quickly, he lifted the 2 boxes and started to rush off towards his dorm room. As he entered the room, he was surprised to see Vorden wasn't there, nor was Peter sitting outside. Although he was too happy to wonder what had happened to them, he placed both of the boxes down and immediately ripped into them. Inspect. Intermediate black horned wolf boots. Agility +4. Defense +2. When boots are active, can increase the user's speed by 10% for 30 seconds. If hit while active, speed will return to normal. The boots were a solid black in color, while the top of them that covered above his ankles were slightly pointed to imitate the ears of a wolf. Other than that, they just looked like regular boots, which were perfect. Quinn could have bought cheaper boots, but what interested him about these were they had their very own active skill in them as well. Quinn had heard of such items having skills, but usually that was the case with higher tier equipment. It was quite rare for a piece of intermediate beast equipment to have an active skill, which was why the item was priced at the higher end. Next were the 2 intermediate crystals he had bought. He held each of them in his hand, and a message had appeared. Would you like to store intermediate beast crystals, too, in your inventory? After selecting yes, the 2 crystals started to disappear and suddenly vanished out of the palm of his hands. Now, when he accessed the shop, the gauntlets that he was looking for were no longer grayed out. After selecting the item, a final message appeared. Would you like to create the best standard intermediate gauntlets? Cost 3 intermediate crystal. The naming of the item was a bit strange, but that still wouldn't put Quinn off. He was the only one that could see the name of the things anyway. After selecting yes, An image was inserted into his head. He could see the 3 crystals he had obtained in a black, empty space. Each of the crystals started to slowly move towards the center of the room, as if they were being attracted by something. Finally, when the 3 crystals touched, a large white light formed in his mind. Then when the bright light dimmed down, all that was left were the grayish-silver gauntlets. They didn't look like anything special. In fact, it was hard to tell that they had even been made from beast cores in the first place, but Quinn didn't mind. All he cared for were the stat points. When he opened his eyes and looked down, the gauntlets were there placed in his hand. Wow, this is amazing. It really did just form itself and appear out of nowhere. Inspect. Best standard intermediate beast gauntlets. Strength +6. Defense +4. When using the skills Blood Swipe and Blood Spray, attacks will be 5% stronger. He then immediately went into the shop again, but this time something strange happened. He scrolled and looked, but the item he had just created was no longer there. If you're looking for the gauntlets, they are already in your hands. The system said, sounding half confused. I know that, Quinn replied. It's just, I thought I could make another one. If I bought 3 more intermediate crystals, then I could sell it online and make my money back. Unfortunately, each item in the system is a one-time item. The system answered, once you have created it once, the item may never be created again. Suddenly, Quinn felt a little depressed. The reason he had spent his money so freely on the boots was because he hoped he would be able to make another pair of gauntlets and sell them online. Let me show you something cool. The system said, open up your dimensional portal using your shadow skill and place both of the boots and gauntlets in there. I'm not going to lose them, am I? Quinn asked. Just trust me. Quinn had already done a few tests with the dimensional portal, so he was sure that he would be able to get the equipment back. He did as told and opened up a small shadow portal, putting both of the items in. Weapons and armor detected in dimensional space. New skill Shadow Equip acquired. Shadow Equip? What does it do? Quinn asked. Just try it out and see. Shadow Equip activated. As soon as the skill was active, clouds of shadow surrounded his hands and feet. He could feel something forming on top of his hands and legs. Then when the shadow clouds disappeared, the equipment he had put in the portal were now on him. It was like an instant equip. With this, Quinn didn't need to wear all his equipment beforehand. He could even hide high levels of equipment from the eyes of others and be ready for a fight anytime. With the new equipment all set up and ready, Quinn was itching to test it out, and he knew the perfect place to test it, the VR game. Unknown to Quinn, though, the last time he played, he had caused quite a stir. People claimed he was a hacked player, and one person in particular had been checking the game every day for Quinn to log in. Logan was waiting for him. This time when he logged in, he was going to find out just who this Bloodevolver was. It was getting late that day, and soon would be nighttime. Tomorrow was the weekend, so once again, the students would be free to do what they want as long as they didn't leave the city for a couple of days. With this, Quinn decided to head back to his dorm and call it night. When he arrived at the halls of the dorm, he could see Peter sitting up against their room wall asleep. As Quinn walked past and entered the room, he took a glance at Peter, who looked to be bruised and beaten. Not only that, but he seemed to have a couple of clumps of hair missing from his head. Is he still getting bullied? I wonder who ordered him to do it? Maybe Layla will know more. Quinn thought as he entered the room. He still hadn't forgiven Peter, and truthfully he never thought he could. But still, he wanted to stop incidents like this from happening in the future. To do that, he needed to find out who was at the top giving out the orders. When Quinn entered the room, Vorden was already inside on his bed relaxing. Hey, Quinn said. Where have you been? I came back earlier, but no one was here. Oh, that, Vorden replied. Actually, something has been really bugging me about the whole Peter situation. It's obvious someone asked him to do it, right? And they had already set up a fall guy to take the blame. But when I tried to find out what happened to that person today, not a single person knew. Everyone just kept saying the punishment was dealt with by Duke since he's a second year. Why don't you go to the first-year students he was hanging around with before? Maybe they know something. Yeah, I was planning to do that on the weekend, but we need to be careful. If my hunch is right, this would be involving someone at least at the sergeant level. Do you want me to come with you? Quinn asked. No, I think it's best if we investigate separately. Plus, if I get caught, it's harder for them to touch me. While for you, it's a different matter completely until we get level on your watch sorted. I know, Quinn said as he snapped his fingers. Why don't you ask Layla? Apparently, when we left, they ran into those friends of Peter's. The face Vorden was currently making wasn't one of happiness, but it wasn't one of disgust either. It was as if he was trying to put on a smile, but his body was fighting against him. Quinn, you do know me and or don't get on right? Well, you know you're going to have to. We have the expedition next week. Use this as a chance to repair your friendship. I've already lost one friend. Don't make me pick and choose between you two, Vorden. Vorden then grabbed the pillow by his side and threw it at Quinn's face. All right, man, I'll try. The two of them then laid down in their bed to get some sleep. You're not actually going to try to become friend with her, are you? Ratton asked, just kill her, and then he doesn't have to choose. We're his best friend, done, deal end off. Go away and let me sleep. With Vorden investigating the situation, that meant Quinn would be free to head to the VR room tomorrow. But before he shut his eyes to go sleep, he decided to have a look at the tutorial video he had unlocked when reaching level 10. Once again, the blonde man appeared, who looked like he was in some type of dojo. Congratulations on reaching level 10. Now in this video, no new skills will be learnt, but instead we will be creating our own. By now you should have also unlocked the skill Blood Spray and learnt the skill Hammer Strike. Although Blood Spray can be used on multiple targets, to do the most damage, it's best if you're actually touching your opponent. What's even better is if you combine the two skills together. The blonde man then got into a fighting stance once again. He repeated all the steps of the Hammer Strike as usual, but right at the end when the force came out, he performed the Blood Spray attack. Rather than spreading out like it usually did, it was compact and came out together in a thick line. In the video, a loud sound could be heard. Whoops, the blonde man said. Looks like I will have to make some repairs to the dojo. This move I call Hammer Spray. Now be careful, because this attack will not only use up your stamina, but will drain you of your blood as well. Also, the Hammer Spray takes slightly longer to prepare, so it may not be optimal in all situations. But the point is, if you activate Blood Spray with a punch in your fist, it will be several times stronger. After watching and analyzing the video carefully, Quinn finally shut his eyes to get some sleep. The next day when they awoke, Quinn was greeted with his usual message. Avoid sunlight for 8 hours, 5 EXP gained. 10 out of 100 EXP. Quinn was glad that after he evolved, his EXP points seemed to have reset. He hated to think how hard it would be to level up if his EXP kept doubling up all the time. In fact, it seemed like an impossible task in the future. As the two woke up, they started getting ready. That's when Quinn noticed something as Vorden changed out of his uniform. Hey Vorden, don't you use a beast weapon or anything? Quinn asked. When leaving the city, just in case of an attack, people usually carry their weapons with them. Quinn was keeping his in the dimensional void for the time being. Actually, most of the time, I prefer to use elemental abilities, which kind of just get in the way with weapons. Although you're right, I should probably pick one just in case I get an ability where it would be useful. Well, if you could, is there anything you're best at or anything you would want? I guess I always thought daggers were cool, but it might be a while before I can make my own beast weapon. My family don't like to send me money because they think I should earn everything myself. Vorden said, laughing. Quinn had actually planned to create a new weapon for both Vorden and Layla. They had both helped him so much, and he wanted to return the favor. Layla had helped him learn so much about vampires, while Vorden had even come in after him to the portal world. There was also the worry that other vampires or something else might come to attack them. If that was the case, they might go after those around him, so there was no harm in making them stronger. As the two exited out of the room, they noticed that Peter was still up against the wall sitting there. You can go in the room and sleep there while we are out. Just make sure when we come back in, you're out of there, Vorden said. The two continued to walk off until they had finally split ways. Quinn headed to the VR room while Vorden started to head outside the building. That was nice of you, Ratton said. We can't become worse than what we were trying to get rid of, Vorden replied. Speaking of getting rid of people, here's your chance. Standing just outside the gate was Aaron and Layla. Both of them were no longer in the military uniform. They were dressed in their casual clothes for the weekend. Layla wore a stunning red dress, while Aaron was a bit more elegant. It was white in color with flowers on the bottom, and on top of her head, she was wearing a large summer hat to block out the sun. As soon as Layla spotted Vortin, she turned her head away. Nearly every interaction with him so far while Quinn was away wasn't a good one. But then she started to hear the sound of footsteps getting closer and closer. No, he couldn't be. Is he walking over to us? She thought. Come on, Vortin, you're doing this for Quinn. You can do it, he thought. Now the two of them were within grabbing distance once again. Aye. For the first time, Vortin was stuttering in his life. But it wasn't because he was scared. It was because of Ratton yelling all sorts of things in his head. I need your help, he blurted out. The look on Layla's face was one she had never made before. As Quinn headed down to the VR room, he was suddenly feeling exited. Now, with his credits, he could spend as much time in the game as he wanted and practice the skills until he got tired of it. Eventually, though, the best thing would be for Quinn to purchase a capsule of his own. That way, he could play the game in his room and connect to players not just within the military camps. But just remembering the price of the thing made him shudder. 100,000 credits. To purchase the item, he would need 10 advanced tier crystals or 100 intermediate tier crystals. To get that sort of money would take him years. It was a shame Quinn thought that he couldn't use the system to reproduce the weapons again and again. If so, he would be able to have an unlimited supply of money. But it did make him wonder if there was any way he could exploit the system in some way. Then the idea hit him. He already knew all the items needed to make the weapons. In fact, the gauntlets he was using now only required 3 beats crystals. As long as he gave the items and his original gauntlets as a reference, a blacksmith should be able to reverse engineer and create something similar. Let's see, 3,000 coins for the materials, then 2,000 for the blacksmith fee. That's 5,000 coins in total. Then if I sell on the marketplace for 8,000 coins, that would be 3,000 in profit. Quinn quickly realized the problem with his plan. The profit earned from selling the weapons would not be enough to cover the cost of making the weapons again. He would either himself need a large amount of capital in the first place or find an investor who was interested in the idea. I would be careful if I was you, the system said in a serious tone, different from its usual self. Do you remember when you searched for the items from a shop, how none of them appeared on the marketplace? Well, there's a reason for that, which is these weapons and the blueprints that were used to create them don't belong to humans. Quinn didn't need to hear him say the name. He knew what the system was talking about. They belonged to the vampires. I'm afraid if you start mass-producing these items and start selling them to the public, they will start looking for you. So I guess that rules out that plan. I never said you couldn't, I just said to be careful. For now, perhaps Quinn would have to put his money-making plan on hold. He still wasn't strong enough to deal with other humans. Never mind vampires, and besides, he didn't have an investor or someone who could back him up anyway. Finally, Quinn had arrived at the VR center and went up to the counter. This time he deposited 100 credits in his account, so he would have 10 hours of playing time. He wasn't planning to play it at once, but this way he wouldn't be interrupted. It was early in the morning, so there wasn't a lot of people around yet. Besides, people didn't usually want to spend their weekends playing a game all day. Quinn made sure he was in between his own capsule and another. He looked around, and then when no one was looking, opened up his dimensional void to pull out his boots and gauntlets. He placed them both in the scanner, and when the process was finished, proceeded to put them away back in his dimensional void again. Welcome, Bloodevolver. After entering the pod, he was transported to the blank white space. The first thing Quinn tried to do was look at the ability list. He scrolled and scrolled, but it was as he thought. The game system had no such ability. He tried to use his shadow abilities just as he had done his blood abilities. However, this time they did not work. Can the system not record mutant cells? Is that why the abilities have to be manually inputted? Quinn didn't really know the answer to his own question, and to be honest, not many people would, so there was no need for him to worry about it for now. All he did know was his blood abilities worked in the game, while his shadow abilities did not. But then there was also his new ability days that wasn't part of the shadow. Before going into matchmaking, Quinn wanted to make sure he had a hang of the new tutorial he had been shown. In the game, it didn't take up any of his health, and he could use his blood skills as many times as he wanted. He watched the video one more time as a reference before trying to perform the skill himself. On his first try, he was quite successful. Unlike the other skills, there really wasn't much to learn. It was more a sense of timing, activating his blood spray skill at the same time as his hammer strike. Quinn then started to just throw out a few regular punches while activating blood spray, only at the point where his arms would fully extend. Sometimes he would activate it too early, causing his arms to jerk back a little, and sometimes he was successful. The most important thing was to get the hang of the timing, activating it at that right point. After practicing nonstop for around 30 minutes, his success rate of using blood spray with his punches was around 80%. With hammer strike, he could get it nearly 100% of the time, but like the system had said, it took longer to charge up the hammer strike when combining it with the blood spray. Time to test out these new skills. Searching for same-level opponents. The fact that Quinn was a level 1 still meant he was able to search for opponents at the same level as himself. To start off with, he just wanted some easy picking to test out his skills, but the second he started to search, his player ID had gone online. "Oh, I haven't seen him in a while," Nate said. "I thought he might have stopped playing the game." Ever since Nate had fought against the Bloodevolver, he had gained an interest in the opponent, mainly because of the type of ability he had. Now spectating Bloodevolver. But he wasn't the only one keeping an eye on him. So was Logan. The forum post had long since died down, but it still bugged Logan that there could be someone taking advantage of the game he helped create. He had set up the system so it would ping him as soon as the Bloodevolver went online. Then he could spectate his games without having the need to be on his friends list. "Come on, let's see how you do it," Logan said as he waited for the Bloodevolver to find his next game. There was a part of him that was hoping the videos were fake. He needed to see it with his own eyes whether or not someone was able to break the system. After searching for a minute or so, a suitable opponent was found. Each player's avatars had entered the game. Equipped with his new boots and gauntlets, his stats were as high as they ever had been. Strength 16, plus 6. Stamina 15. Agility 16, plus 4. Charm 5. The countdown began, and the game had started. In an instant, Quinn rushed forward. With his new boots, he felt lighter and faster than ever. These things are amazing. The first fight was simply a test of everything he could do. While running, he decided to activate the skill from the boots, increasing his speed even further for another 30 seconds. He would run from side to side. His opponent found it nearly impossible to keep up with him. It was like looking at a fly. 1 second he could keep track of it, then suddenly it would change direction, and he would lose it. The user then prepared the water held in his hand and started to form a long blade with it. After running around the room for 30 seconds, the boots had finally worn off, and now Quinn was heading straight for his opponent. 5-minute cooldown before wind run could be used again. "He's really going to just run straight at me?" the user thought, and when Quinn was close enough, he swung his water blade across right at him. "I probably won't die if that thing hits me, but time to try it out." He looked at the user in the eye, and for the first time, activated his new skill. Daze has been activated. Your opponent has been stunned. Suddenly a fear had set into the water user's mind. A shiver was sent down his spine, and when he tried to move his hand, there was no response. Quinn then threw out his fist, and right when it landed on the user's stomach, he activated his blood spray at the same time. The user was sent flying through the air, and a trail of splattered blood followed, leaving from Quinn's gauntlets. Winner, Bloodevolver. It had only taken a single punch with blood spray to finish his opponent off. "Looks like all my vampire abilities work here, not just my blood skills. Well, that's good to know." Logan had watched the whole thing. He couldn't believe it. It was true the user could use some type of red energy. It didn't look like any ability he knew off, but that wasn't the problem. Logan had even checked beforehand and confirmed that Quinn had selected no ability before entering the game. He quickly started typing rapidly onto his keyboard and searched for any information he could pull. Most of the information was scrambled for the user's safety. He couldn't find out who was in the pod, but he could find out other information. After typing away for a few minutes, he finally found the information he needed. User Bloodevolver login location, military base 2. "Oh, will you look at that? Seems like we're quite close after all," Logan said, smiling at his computer screen. Up in the stands, Nate found it hard to keep his mouth closed after what he had just seen. The last time the two of them fought each other, Nate had come out as the winner, but now looking at the new Bloodevolver, he seemed so much stronger compared to before. But how? We only fought a couple of weeks ago. Was he holding back? Or did he really just get that much stronger in a short amount of time? The speed, the strength, and even that weird red energy seemed stronger than before. Nate knew he also still had the flash step and the hammer strike in his arsenal of skills. The more he watched this person, the more excited he started to get. After Quinn won his first match, he had a feeling that something was missing, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Wait a minute, where is my EXP? Before, when defeating an opponent, the system would reward him half the amount of EXP he would get for defeating a person on the outside. But this time, there was nothing. Just to make sure, Quinn quickly searched for another level 1 opponent. His opponent was found, and in this match, he wasted no time in dealing with the enemy. He dashed forward and cast Daze, stunning his opponent, and at the moment used Flash Step to get behind them. Then finishing the opponent off with another standard blood punch. Bloodevolver victory. Again, though, there was no system message for EXP. System, what's the meaning of this? Seriously, do you only like speaking to me when you have a problem? The system replied. Anyway, this was obvious, don't you think? You evolved, you're now a level 10, the experience needed was reset. In simple terms, your opponent was too weak for you, so the system didn't reward you any EXP. Quinn cursed underneath his breath. Every time he seemed to be getting somewhere and felt like he could really make progression, the system seemed to get in his way. Quinn then used the search function again, this time searching for level 2 ability users. He was quickly put in another match again. This time when fighting, Quinn wanted to still finish the match fairly quickly, but was a little more cautious. He threw out a barrage of blood swipes to distract the opponent. Then running behind his attacks, he would use Flash Step to appear behind them just in case they were able to block the initial attack. However, that wasn't needed. His blood swipe skill was now a level 2, and because his opponent had never seen such a thing before, he tried to hit it with his basic tier sword. As soon as the two had made an impact, his sword had shattered. The blood swipes hit his body and sent him to the ground. He wasn't dead yet, but badly hurt. It only took one more hit to finish him off. Bloodevolver victory. But still, there were no experience points. Frustrated by the situation, even more, Quinn went to quick search for his opponent, hoping it would find him a random user of a higher level that would at least give him some experience. As he used his inspect skill on his new opponent, he was now going up against a level 4 user with an earth ability. He was wearing a full set of basic tier equipment head to toe. Before the match had started, Quinn failed to notice the stands around him were getting filled. More people were starting to watch his games. After the last two opponents he faced had 2 quick losses, they decided to inspect his next few games. The users were able to search for the previous opponent they played against, and then inspect their matches. They had also invited their friends, saying they had met a person with a strange ability they had never seen before, explaining how they lost in only a few seconds. Their friends had invited their friends, and now the stand were filled with around 20 different people inspecting Quinn's next match. It seems others are starting to notice you as well, Nate said as he heard them talking. Hey, so do you think this is that hacker? Oh yeah, I remember seeing a forum post about it a few days ago on their website. A user who used red energy. I thought it was fake though. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Quinn, looking at his opponent, was wondering just how strong he might be. It was the first time he was fighting against a user who wore beast equipment over his whole body, which meant he would have added stats from the equipment. Actually, there was another person. The system said, but you kind of ate him. Hearing those words from the system reminded him of when he was in the bloodsucker mode, and suddenly he felt a little strange. Thanks for reminding me just before a fight. 3. The match had finally begun. This time, though, Quinn wasn't going to charge it on the get-go. He moved forward until he was within the 5-meter range of blood swipe and swung a single attack out as a tester. The earth user then stomped his foot on the ground, and a solid wall of earth rose from the floor, blocking the attack. However, the blood swipe was powerful and managed to chip away at the wall. Seeing this, the user stomped several times more, adding to the first wall, making it even thicker. Eventually, the red lines disappeared, and the attack was stopped. While Quinn was thinking how to make his next attack and how to make it go through, a hard earth spear had risen from behind and stabbed Quinn in the back, causing him to stumble to the floor. 46 55 HP. Damn, that's what I get for staying still. But before Quinn could even fully recover, several more spears had risen from the ground, coming straight for him. He rolled and dodged the first few before getting back up on his feet. This match was going to be harder than he initially thought. Unlike the other users Quinn fought with before this one, he was more skilled. It reminded him of Vorden a bit. Creative and skillful when using his abilities, even though he wasn't the highest when it came to power level. Wind Walk. Boots activated. Using the boots skill, he was able to increase his speed and avoid all the spears coming towards him from the ground. Wow, he's quite fast, isn't he? Someone from the crowd said, I think it's those boots. They look pretty plain, but they might be at the intermediate tier or even the advanced tier. Although Quinn could finish the match by continually throwing out his blood swipe, he didn't want to win that way. Right now, this was an excellent experience for a battle in the real world, where he would have to be careful of losing his health. One annoying little fly, the Earth user shouted. He then lifted both hands together to create two long walls that went past Quinn. As he brought his hands together, the walls moved with it. Now you can only go in one direction. With no other options, Quinn had no choice but to run straight ahead, but he had a plan. Skill Daze. Daze failed. User not stunned. Oh crap. Right now, Quinn's charm stat points were incredibly low, meaning it was unlikely for it to work against stronger opponents. The higher they were, the lower the chance it had of working. But so far it had worked every single time. Part of this was due to Quinn's luck, but the other part was the fact that they were only level 1s and level 2s he was facing before. Just then the Earth user created another wall in front of him, then started to punch the wall several times. The parts of the wall came flying out at incredible speed. The attacks were too fast for Quinn to react in time. The pieces of rock ended up hitting him one by one and sending him back. 42 55 HP, 38 55 HP, 34 55 HP. But Quinn gritted his teeth and managed to not fall over. As the next set of rocks came towards him, he flash-stepped in front of them all, causing them to miss and go behind him. I guess even with his strange red powers, he just can't beat a high level. Well, did you see the other guy's strength? It must be because he's using a full set of beast gear. No way a normal level 4 user could hit a solid wall like that and cause those rocks to go flying at that speed. Well, I guess it was all just hype in the end. But one person thought differently. Come on, Bloodevolver. I could beat this guy in my sleep. I know you're better than this. Nate said, you know, your lack of experience when it comes to fighting ability users is really starting to show. The system said, shut up, I know, Quinn said. Screw this. Quinn had enough. He started charging forward once again. The Earth user created another wall in front of him and had done the same attack as last time, punching the wall, causing rocks to fly out. Let's see what's stronger. Matching each rock, Quinn started to throw out a blood swipe for every rock thrown at him. Quinn's blood swipe was clearly stronger, destroying the rocks and continuing to go forward. Seeing this, the Earth user had no choice. He jumped back and had put up rows and rows of walls between the two of them, creating a barrier around 3 meters thick. Screw your wall. Quinn then started to make the motion of the hammer strike, bringing the energy up from his toes to the top of his body. That's it. That's the strike that was used against me, Nate said excitedly. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Why not use some more of the red stuff to weaken the walls first? Or break the walls to your side, which are thin, and get behind him. Nate was worried. Although it was clear the Bloodevolver was strong, it was also clear he was an amateur when it came to fighting. Take this, Blood Hammer. Quinn screamed as he let out the hammer strike, and at just the right moment activated his blood spray at the same time. The 22 strength, with the additional 5%, and now combining the hammer strike with blood spray, created a powerful attack. As his fist hit the wall, it instantly started to shatter and burst into pieces all over the arena. Fragments of the wall came flying out into the stadium. Some of the audience members dodged, avoiding them, while others just stood there. Idiots, you do remember this is a game, right? The attacks from there can't hurt us. The strike continued to blast through the wall. This was something the Earth user had never expected. I'll just have to take the hit then, he said, but as the attack hit him, he instantly burst into blue particles, ending the game. Victory, Bloodevolver. At that moment, though, Quinn had collapsed to the floor. Combining all of the attacks and using his skills from before had taken up all his stamina. Soon after, though, he was transported back to his own lobby space where his strength would be returned. The whole crowd was silenced. They didn't know what to say or what they had just seen. During the entire match, the Earth user hadn't been hit once. Even though he was wearing a full set of beast gear, he still lost. This would have increased his defense as well as overall strength. Yet it was useless in front of the single attack. Just who was that guy? Someone said, I told you he was strange, and did you see his weird red ability? Yeah, I've never seen anything like that, did you? Hey, can one of you upload that and put on the forum? Maybe an original has managed to get their ability in the game somehow. While the others were exited and chatting away, Nate's whole body was shaking. He had goosebumps and shivers running all over his body after seeing the last attack. That attack, it wasn't the same one he used against me. It looked the same, but was different. He knew that if he had taken that attack head-on like he did the hammer strike last time, half of his health wouldn't have gone down. It would have been the whole thing, and he would have been just as dead as the user in front of him. So you really did get stronger. Well, we'll just have to get even stronger then. Back inside the lobby, all of his stat points had been returned. So Quinn was no longer on the floor, gasping for air like he had just sprinted a whole marathon. The Blood Hammer Strike skill took up a lot more stamina than I thought. Although he had performed the Blood Hammer skill several times in the lobby, while in the lobby the game did not take away any of his strength. Only during matches would his normal stats be used, and it was the first time he had used Hammer Strike in a game. But a smile was suddenly on Quinn's face. User defeated 25 EXP gained. 40 out of 100 EXP points. Finally, after defeating a level 4 ability user, the system had rewarded him for his hard work. Although Quinn wasn't physically tired, the last match had taken a lot out of him mentally. It was hard to go into the match after the match when it was that intense. It was fine when a matches only lasted a few seconds, but it was different when it was like that. So he decided for today he would take a break. He exited from the pod, and to his surprise, what looked like a little boy was standing in front of him. Hello, Bloodevolver, Logan said. Looks like we finally meet. The boy standing in front of Quinn was quite short. His height only reached to about Quinn's chest, and he had dark green-colored hair that had a middle parting going down both sides. But what was most noticeable about him was the enormous black bags he had under his eyes. But hearing the words come out of Logan's mouth took a while for Quinn to process. He looked around to see if there was anyone else around the two of them, but the few users who were using pods were either still inside or several rows away. So how did you do it? Logan asked. He immediately walked past and shoved Quinn to the side and started inspecting the pod he was just using. He placed his hand on top of the machine and closed his eyes. Doesn't look like any modifications have been made to the pod. Then how? Logan mumbled. Then when looking at Quinn, he spotted that his watch had the number 1 displayed. What? That's impossible, though. You use such powerful skills in the game. You should at least be a level 5. I could have sworn you were an original. In return, Quinn looked at his watch and saw the number 8 on it. The highest level the watch was able to display. At that moment, just looking at the number struck fear into his heart, and he froze. Should I make a run for it? If I do, will he attack me right here and now? I had so much trouble with the level 4 in the game, there's no way I can go against a level 8 right now. And he might be even higher than that, Quinn thought. Although the watches displayed up to a power level of 8, there were actually people considered stronger than that. The system was based only on the abilities the military could get a hold of, meaning the highest power level they were able to hand out was that of 8. But even within their own ranks and between other originals, some powers went beyond. So, by default, if a user mutant cells were beyond, it would display 8. You're not thinking of running, are you? Because I haven't finished questioning you. I need to know how. How did you manage to break my game? Logan shouted as he started to go off into a rant. I could understand if you hacked into the system, but this, I just don't understand. I need to understand. Logan started getting closer to Quinn as he rambled like a madman. Why do I seem to attract the strangest people? Quinn thought. If you don't want to answer me here, then you can go with me to my dorm room. There's plenty of time, and nobody will be able to see us. As Logan touched Quinn's hand to pull him over, something strange had happened. Ability detected. Alterations to the system are trying to be made. Alterations have been blocked. But the strangest thing was, Quinn wasn't the only one who was seeing these messages. Logan was too. He animatedly let go and touched his hand as if he had been scratched by something. You are UA. This was it. Before Quinn could do anything, his cover had been blown. Maybe Layla and Vorden understood, but there was no way a stranger would understand. Would he have to fight to the death to keep his identity a secret? Or would he use his shadow cloak skill to hide and run away? Maybe he could run to one of the portals and live his life on another planet. Are you a robot? Logan shouted. Quinn replied, confused. You have a system. My ability confirmed it. For the first time as well, I was rejected by a computer. You must be a robot with a powerful master and ability that goes above mine. Did Richard Eno create you? That would also explain the game. My system and the level 1 on your watch. A robot can't have any MC points, and those attacks must be programmed into your artificial brain. Looking at little Logan now, he just seemed like an excited little kid. He didn't seem threatening at all, but this did put Quinn in an awkward situation. Logan knew he had some type of system, and somehow he confirmed it with his ability. Was it better off telling him the truth or coming up with some other type of lie? Quinn thought hard, but he could come up with nothing that would explain why he could use certain abilities in the game without reviling everything. He took a deep breath. I'm not a robot, but for some reason one day I woke up and had this system ability. Maybe it was a gift from a god who knows. The skills you saw are some of the things I can do, Quinn replied. Is it an ability similar to mine then? I wonder who did this to you. Maybe they turned you into an android. Android technology has come a long way, but the use of AI systems inserted into their brain was banned. They were afraid that an ability user may come along who could take control of them all and use it against the army. But this is the first time I have seen an android as powerful as yourself. Quinn looked at Logan, who now wouldn't stop staring at him. Then a thought came to his mind. He had been looking for someone who would be able to help him out with the watch. It was clear that Logan knew a lot about machinery, and something like changing the number displayed on the watch would be easy for him. Can you keep this a secret? Quinn replied. Maybe the two of us can work together, perhaps find who did this to me. There are a few things I need help with. Logan was genuinely fascinated by this ability. He had never seen anything like it before, and the curiosity was already driving him mad. Maybe it was even an original who was able to pass on his ability like a computer system rather than training the person. But then why did the watch not display his level? This was why Logan could only assume Quinn was a type of android that didn't have him see points and didn't even realize it himself. Of course, it would also give me the chance to study you. Logan then put out his hand. The name's Logan. Quinn, he replied as the two shook hands. Ability detected. Alterations to the system are trying to be made. Alterations have been blocked. Logan then pulled his hand away again, almost immediately. That does not feel good. Maybe we avoid touching each other for now. Agreed. Quinn laughed nervously. Just what was the system? And who created it? Quinn thought. The only person he could think of was the man in the video. Quinn seemed to recall the blonde man stating that his experiment was a success, which would suggest that other vampires like himself didn't have a system. So then why did he? And why did his parents have the book in the first place? Just outside the school at the front gates, the unexpected had just occurred. Layla was struggling to stand as she had just heard certain words come out of Vorden's mouth. First, I'm going to have to ask you to step back a bit, Layla said, and no touchy from you. I keep telling you let's just kill this bitch right here, right now, Ratton said. Look, I'm trying to be reasonable here. Vorden said, come on. Quinn said that you could help me. Every time she looked at Vorden, she remembered when she was being chalked by him. It wasn't a good feeling, and her senses were still tingling all over the place every time he approached. If it wasn't for the fact that Aaron was standing by her side, she would have run the second she saw him coming over. But she had to admit one thing. Vorden, for whatever crazy reason he had, seemed to genuinely care for Quinn. The two of them soon would also be going to the portal expedition together. It was important they tried their best to make up while they could. She let out a big breath and gave in. Fine, what is it? Actually, it's related to Peter. Quinn said that you two had spoken to him while we were away on the other planet. Did you manage to get anything out of him? No, I could tell that we wouldn't. It seemed like he was scared of something, even with Aaron there threatening him, which meant whatever he was scared of was a bigger problem than Aaron. Layla said, well, I don't think we can get anything out of Peter right now. He's broken more than ever. Perhaps the only thing that's holding him on is this last bit of hope. I was hoping by outcasting him like this, he would go back to the person who put him up to this. Wait, what? Layla said, you mean you're doing this whole thing on purpose? I understand he needs to be punished, but don't you think you're going a little too far? Too far, Vorden replied. You don't even know what really happened there. Were you nearly killed by a blood-sucking beast, abandoned in a world full of monsters everywhere? Blood-sucking beasts? So did Quinn really? Just then, Layla stopped herself as she turned to look at Aaron by her side. She had gotten so heated in the conversation, she had forgotten all about her. But as the two looked at Aaron, she was bent over looking at a trail of ants going across the floor. It seemed like she was disinterested in the whole conversation the two were having. Anyway, if you can't get anything out of Peter, then try a first-year student named Earl. He was the one hanging around Peter before this whole thing started, and it looked like the two were going to meet the day we met up with both of them. Earl, got it. Thanks for the help, Vorden said. Oh, before I go, Aaron, do you mind if I touch your hand? Aaron stood up from the ground and looked at Vorden for a few seconds. When they had first met, she had refused. She simply believed he was someone weak and below her. But she quickly came to realize that Vorden was one of the strongest people in her class. I hope you use it well, Aaron said as she held out her hand. With her ability copied, Vorden then turned away and walked off. He's a tough one, Aaron shouted. Even with my threats, he didn't reveal anything. Don't worry, Vorden said, smiling back. I know someone who taught me a few things. Vorden continued to walk off back into school. Hey, Ratton, looks like I might have a job for you soon. As Layla saw Vorden walk off, she still had one thought. Crazy boy. Quinn and Logan were in a different part of the school building than Quinn was usually in. They were in the dorm room area, but were in the floor directly above where Quinn would usually stay and sleep. The fact that they were in the same dorm room building meant that the two of them were in the same year, despite the fact that Logan looked like a middle school student. We're here, Logan said. As Quinn looked around, he noticed there were fewer doors and were further spaced apart. What is this place? Quinn asked. It's the VIP dorms. If your family make a generous donation to the military before coming here, then you get access to one of these rooms. As he opened the door, Quinn was amazed by the sight in front of his eyes. The room was twice the size of the one he shared with 3 people, and there was only a single bed. But that wasn't what amazed him. The whole room was filled with what Quinn could only call junk. There were piles of scrap metal everywhere, and lying across the entire place were gadgets, little spaceships, controllers, and all sorts. There were 2 things that stood out in the room. One of them was a large human-sized tube that seemed to be hooked up to a computer and had large tube-like wires hanging from the top, and right next to that was a VR pod. One of the ones that cost 100,000 credits to buy. Logan's family was a rare case. Usually, when getting rich, it was to do with power. Those with strong abilities earned money by hunting or from protecting others. However, Logan's family were one of the very few who managed to amass its wealth by making the VR game and selling the equipment. There were a few other families that were able to do the same, such as companies that built the spaceships and certain beast weapons. But a lot of them still worked under the umbrella of an original family. Logan then went to sit into his mechanical chair that instantly sprouted a load of arms and started to give him a massage. So what did you want help with? Logan asked. Quinn was in a strange situation. Layla and Vorden knew he was a vampire but didn't know about the system, while Logan knew about the system but didn't know he was a vampire. However, because of what Logan knew, it seemed more comfortable to explain the system side rather than the vampire side. I was wondering if you would be able to hack the watch for me. Allow it to display a number of whatever I want. I should be able to do that easily for you. But first you need to tell me why. Quinn hesitated for a little bit. He had only just met Logan. He seemed like a nice guy off initial impression, but every killer or crazy person out there showed a nice face to someone at some point. I think I know what you're thinking. You're worried that if the government find out about your ability, they're going to try to take you away and dissect you. Logan said, well, trust me, I won't be telling the government, the military, or anyone anything. I'll be honest with you, Quinn. I don't care about you. I care about the person who is able to input a system into your mind. To find that person, I need you to lead him to me. And before that happens, I'm not letting anyone take you away. Logan's words sounded a little scary and harsh to Quinn, but at least they were honest. Unlike other people where he couldn't tell what they were thinking, Logan was being completely transparent. As you know, my system has a certain set of skills that I'm allowed to use in the game. But the thing is, I actually do have an ability. Quinn then lifted the shadow and started to move into a giant hand and used it to wave at Logan. If it wasn't for the fact that Logan was sitting down, he would have fallen down from the shock. What is that? So you really aren't original? Not quite. It was an ability the system already had, but for some reason, as you can see, Quinn said, pointing at his watch. It doesn't register on the watch. 1,000 thoughts started to race through Logan's mind of why it might be. He wasn't interested too much in the ability itself. That stuff didn't interest him, but he wanted to know the reason why. The watch is a simple fix, but if I do this for you, I was wondering if you could do me a favor, Logan said, looking at the wire tube machine. Quinn started to sweat, looking at the thing. If he wasn't going to be experimented on by the military, he felt like Logan would be doing it anyway. Don't look at me like that. The machine there is for the game. Will you let me put your shadow abilities in the game? Logan asked. Quinn decided to think long and hard about Logan's suggestion. For him to be able to use his ability, he needed to follow and use Vorden's plan. This way, others wouldn't go after him. But before even that, he needed everyone to think his ability was just like everyone else. But the problem was the shadow ability was linked to the vampires. Most likely, only vampires were able to learn this type of ability, and if that was to be added to the game, it would cause a big problem. I'm sorry, Quinn said. This ability, it's not mine. Do you know what happened to me recently? What happened to you? Logan said, puzzled. Quinn went on to explain how recently he had gone to a red portal planet along with his friend Vorden. And while there, he had discovered the ability book and learnt the skill only to have the book disappear. I see. Logan said, I guess I have been in my room too much. I didn't really focus on stuff going on outside. So because of your plan with your friend, you need the ability on the watch. Logan sat down, thinking for a while. The robotic hands had finished massaging him, and now, behind him, coffee was being made from another machine. Well, how about this? You still help me get the ability into the game, but I won't make the ability public. If you want, you can come up here and play the game on a private server and practice using your abilities in the game. You won't have anyone to fight against, but you can still use your abilities freely while no one is looking. I get to study you a bit more, and you get to practice. It's a win-win. As soon as Logan finished talking, he turned around and started to take a sip of his coffee, letting out a sigh of relief. Ah, the perfect temperature. So what do you think? There seemed to be no downside if Quinn was to agree. The only thing was he would feel a bit like a lab rat being looked at all the time, but this solved a few of his problems. Before going to the portal expedition, Quinn wanted to unlock the Shadow Void. That way, if he was in a dangerous situation and in the sun, he would at least have a fighting chance to survive. I say go for it. The system said, if you want to unlock the shadow skill I told you about earlier, you will need to level up your current shadow abilities to gain skill points. Then you can unlock the Shadow Void. This is perfect for you. Although Quinn found the system annoying, it was clear that it was on his side, trying its best to help out the user. All right, Logan, I'll do it. Logan jumped out of his chair and had a smile on his face. Great, let's get to work. Following Logan's instructions, Quinn did as asked and got into the strange large glass test tube. Once he was inside, the glass lowered, and now he was trapped in a small space. At the same time, Logan rushed over to his computer and started typing away. Can you hear me all okay, Quinn? Yeah, little nervous this is going to hurt. Relax, you big baby, Logan said. Now, all I need you to do is slowly use your abilities while in the tube. Quinn proceeded to use his abilities as instructed. He started off with the shadow control and started to move it around in the tube. Numbers on the computer screen were scrolling about like crazy, but as Quinn looked over, it seemed like Logan wasn't typing anything. Right now, his eyes were closed and his hand was the only thing on the computer. Is it his ability? Quinn thought. There were some strange instances where Logan had mentioned a few things. He had touched the capsule Quinn was using and said it wasn't hacked, and then when the two of them touched hands, he also could see the system messages. And now there was this. The test continued with Quinn demonstrating his shadow cloak skill and also his shadow equip skill. The only thing he didn't show while in the test tube was his dimensional space. And we're done, Logan said, rubbing his eyes. He then got out from his chair and started to walk over to his bed. All the data has been uploaded to that VR capsule by your side. If you want to practice, then go ahead. I'm going to take a nap. I'm beat. After lying down on his bed, a few seconds later, he was fast asleep, smiling away. He's quite trusting to be able to sleep in a room while you're still here. The system said. If only he knew what you really were. I wonder if he would feel so safe. Looks like you're starting to talk to me now. Even when I don't ask you questions, Quinn replied. After entering the VR capsule and entering the game, Quinn was transported to the white space. Just as Logan had said, there was no way for him to start a match, as right now, he was in some type of beta version of the game. When looking at the list of abilities, his shadow abilities had shown as one of the options. After selecting the shadow ability, Quinn immediately got to trying a few things. He used his shadow skills as usual, and while in the game, his MC points didn't go down. What Quinn wanted to do was find out ways he could combine his blood skills along with his shadow control skill. Over the next week, Quinn continued to come to Logan's room every day to practice using his shadow ability. Logan had long done as he promised and had hacked into the watch. Now all Quinn had to do was tap the watch fast 3 times to switch between level 1 and level 6. This was all at Quinn's request, because he planned to still keep it a secret just for a little while longer. Then finally, after a week had passed, he had achieved what he had set out to do. His shadow control skill was now level 2, and so was his shadow equip skill. Now the shadow equip took only a second to fit his beast gear on. As the system had said, every time he leveled up the shadow skill, Quinn had gained skill points. For each level up, he had obtained 10 skill points he could use on the shadow tab. Right now, 4 of the shadow skills out of the 10 had been unlocked. Shadow Control, Level 2. Shadow Cloak, Level 1. Dimensional Void. Shadow Equip, Level 2. Looking at the other skills, Quinn was tempted to unlock some of the others, especially since one of the skills required 50 points to unlock, called Shadow Eater. But in the end, he decided to go with the system's suggestion and purchase the Shadow Void skill for 20 points. Shadow Void Level 1 unlocked. Shadow Void. The ability to create a space surrounded by shadows in a specific area. The space created will last a total of 1 hour. 50 MC points to cast the skill. 50 points, that's half of my MC. But there was no use complaining. In the end, it was a skill meant to help him use his vampire abilities. While using his vampire abilities, his MC points would slowly start to restore. Then he could switch back to shadow abilities. While in the VR game, Quinn tried to test out the new skill. However, when he tried using it, nothing had happened. Oh, I guess Logan needs to program any new skills into the game as well. As he exited the capsule, he realized it would be the last time he would see the thing in a while. Because tomorrow was finally the day where the first years would go out on their first portal outing. Finally, the day for the portal outing had arrived. All the first-year students had been told to gather up in the training hall, which was located on the east side of the building. Usually, the training hall was restricted to military personnel only, which didn't include students. When Quinn entered the room, he noticed it straight away, because it was the same place he was in before he had been pushed by Peter. Nearly all the portals in the room had been pushed to the side of the hall, and only a single green portal stood in the center. The entire of Dell's class had arrived, which numbered around 50 students altogether, and currently, they were in groups of 5. They were required to stay in the same teams that they had registered for previously. In the center of each team was a large rucksack that had been handed to them. These contained the necessary supplies and needs for every team. There were food pills that lasted up to a month, water purifying pills, and first aid supplies to go with it. "All right, boys and girls," Del said as he stood just in front of the portal. "I have some important information for you before you head in the portal, so listen up. When you enter the portal, the communication device on your wrist will no longer work. It is important when entering the portal, you keep physical touch with the person next to you. Otherwise, you will be teleported to another location." Quinn and Vorden both already knew this well. Also, you will randomly be teleported somewhere inside the shelter. Do not be alarmed. The whole shelter is safe and guarded by the military and other travelers. The expedition is to last a week, and the goal is to bring back as many beast crystals with you as possible. The team with the most beast crystals at the end of the week will get the highest score. The highest tier beast you will see in a green portal planet is an intermediate beast. But this is rare. If you come across one, please avoid confrontation and head to a different location. Del explained. Inside the shelter, there is a military base with a storage room where they will keep track of the crystals you have obtained. I suggest you do this at a regular interval, so you do not lose all your crystals. Our class is the first to enter, and every hour another first-year class will be sent. I hope this class stays competitive as your teacher. Del continued to explain about the portal outings. He went on to suggest to other students to not travel too far from the original shelter they were based at, although there were several shelters scattered around the planet. There was no one to guide them between each one, and not every shelter had a military base. The test was also to begin as soon as the first team landed on the planet. It was up to them to decide how they should pace themselves while hunting. The whole aim was to allow the students to get to the point where they could be self-efficient. But the last bit of information that came from Del's mouth was the worst news for Quinn. Please keep track of time and be well rested. This planet's day cycle is 72 hours of sunlight before it gets dark for another 72 hours, so you'll need to keep track of the time yourselves, and that is everything I need to say. At that moment, Vorden and Layla turned to look at Quinn, who stood there with his mouth wide open. "Don't worry, Quinn," Layla said. "I packed the umbrella." "PFT, umbrella," Vorden said. "I got something even better." Vorden then reached into the bag to pull out some sun cream. "I think this might do the trick," Vorden said. Layla immediately started to laugh as she pointed at the bottle. "You idiot, that's not going to work. How can you be so sure?" Vorden snapped back. "Guys, can you please all calm down? People are staring," Quinn said. And sure enough, everyone around them was looking at the two in a heated argument. While Layla and Vorden continued to quietly argue away, Quinn was making sure everything was in the bag, and Erin was playing around with her beast sword. The only one who wasn't, and hadn't said a word this whole time, was Peter. He had made sure to stay quite a distance away from the others. One by one groups would be called up to enter the portal, but before Quinn's group had been called, Quinn pulled Vorden to one side to ask him a few questions. "Hey, so, any news on who was behind the thing with Peter?" Quinn asked. "Nothing," Vorden replied. "What, seriously?" "Yup, and when I say I roughed up the kids pretty badly, I really mean it. The only thing I found out from them was you weren't the original target. It was me," Vorden explained. "Although I did manage to follow them, and it seemed like they were heading into the second year, building an awful lot. I tried again to see where they were going, but no luck there. Perhaps I ruffled up a little too many second year's feathers." "I see. Well, I guess maybe we should keep an eye on Peter for now." "Hey, Quinn," Vorden whispered. "Do you really not think this will work?" Vorden then pulled out the sun cream he had brought with him. "We already tried it, but thanks for looking out for me." Just then, the number of their group had been called, and they were ready to head into the portal. As Erin went to pick up the rucksack from the floor, another hand had reached for it. As she looked up, she noticed it was Peter. "Please, let me help," Peter said. "I don't want to be useless and drag the team down. Just let him do what he wants." Vorden shouted. "The least he can do is carry our things." Standing in a row, the group stood behind each other, one in front of the other. Each was holding onto the shoulders of the person in front. At the back was Peter, and Vorden at the front. "Now remember, don't let go," Del instructed. "In 7 days, you are to head to the military base and return through the portal back here." One by one, they walked through, and an odd feeling came over their body. Then finally, Peter was the last one to enter. All their senses were heightened as they went through the portal. Their minds felt like it was slightly spinning. Then after a few seconds, it was over. When the group opened their eyes, they were surrounded by townsfolk chatter and all sorts. Rows of buildings and shops, market stalls selling food and weapons. They had successfully made it to the shelter. But one person wasn't happy about it at all. You are in contact with direct sunlight. Your stats will now decrease by 70%. The shelter they had just arrived at was just as big as the military base they had come from. It was a similar size to the old towns that human civilization used to have. The only difference was there were no tall skyscraper-like buildings, and the biggest building in this shelter was a military one, which was only 3 stories high. The ground they stood on top of was hard and solid, a dry orange color, with no sign of green life. It was hard to imagine anything being able to grow on these lands. It was clear that hot, blistering sun had dried out the ground. It was the first time most of the students had arrived at another planet. And even for Quinn, it was a significant difference compared to the shelter he was at before. The streets were full of people walking left and right, with the children by their side. Stalls everywhere selling all kind of things, hot smoky meat with fresh fruit and veg. This looks even better than some places on Earth. Quinn said, I wonder why more people don't move to the shelters more. Freedom, Layla said. If you look around you, most of the people here aren't travelers or work for the military. Most likely, all of them were low levels who could no longer afford to live on Earth. They were forced to move here. But I bet not many have ever left the shelter and gone outside. It means their whole life is this shelter. With power, it meant you had more choices. A high level was able to choose which shelter they wanted to live at, and even have a place back on Earth. They could travel in between, and they weren't really restricted to anything. However, it wasn't the same for these people. They had to pick a place and never leave it. The shelters themselves were created and funded by companies or the military. The shelter they were at right now was owned by the government. As such, everyone was required to pay a credit tax for protection and to live there. Even travelers who would go out hunting, if they wanted to return back to Earth, would be required to pay a tax. While other shelters were owned by companies and factions, most of them owned by something known as the Big Four families. They were the strongest known originals, and usually their shelters were a bit higher class and imitated more of a city back on Earth. With this was the tier system. Each shelter was given a specific tier, Tier 1 being the highest and Tier 5 being the lowest. The higher tiers earned more money and were more protected compared to the lower tiers. The shelter they were in now was a Tier 4 shelter. The higher tiers had the power to protect it from higher-level beasts, so the tax cost more to live on one. When the group of 5 landed, they noticed that there was a circle drawn on the ground where they were, and the people walking around were doing their best to avoid it. Come on, we better move, Warden said. Just give... Quinn said slowly, as he was already starting to sweat buckets. Quinn, I'm sorry, Layla said as she rushed over and handed him the umbrella. What's wrong with him? Aaron asked. Oh, he just really can't deal with heat and hates the sun. He came from really far up north. I mean, like really far. Layla explained, babbling. Aaron looked Quinn up and down, who now had the umbrella propped up over his head. You might be even more useless than Peter on this trip. How are you meant to fight with an umbrella in your hand? This was a major problem. Although Quinn now had an ability and he could use it to fight instead of his vampire powers, he still had the weakness of the vampire. The sun. If he was to fight during the day, unless he used his skill Shadow, Void the Sun would still affect him. But Shadow Void took up half of his MC points, not leaving him much to fight with. The other option was to use Shadow Cloak, which when he tested back at the military base also was able to block out the sun. The problem with this was he was unable to use his shadow abilities to attack while using Shadow Cloak. It was just a stealth ability. He could use his vampire powers, but that would defeat the whole point. Because of these reasons, Quinn still had to hide the shadow ability for a little longer until he found a solution to the sun. They did as Vorden said, and after a couple of minutes, another group of 5 students had landed in the same circle where they were. How did you know? Quinn asked. Although the teleportation is random, it's not completely. Vorden said, think of it like a game with random respawn points. No one knows which point you will end up at, but they can tell where all the points are. Well, where should we go first? Layla asked. Let's head to the Traveler's Hall. It's a place where they have information for travelers. You can also trade in your crystal cores for credits there, or just trade in general. They walked through the shelter and eventually reached a very large hangar-like building. It was an open space with no entrance, so people were free to enter and go as they pleased. From side to side, it was filled with counters that were stationed with workers. Just as Vorden had said, there were blacksmiths here who could forge equipment, shops that sold little gadgets and things such as beast bait, and even a quest board. The quest board was mostly filled with other travelers looking to group up and complete a task together. Sometimes civilians asking for protection were on there as well, as they traveled from one shelter to another. Looks like we're not the only ones here, Erin said as she looked at the groups. It was easy to spot the students, as they were required to wear the military uniform. Although some of them had beast gear on, nearly no one had a full suit of beast gear with them since they were only first years. What are they doing? Layla asked as she saw them go up to the quest board. It looks like they're asking for help, Vorden said. Those from a rich family will just hire travelers to do the hunting with them. But how is that fair? Layla asked. Since when have they cared about fair? Vorden replied. You know, those that have close ties with the military or have already sold themselves will actually be helped by the military. Well, there's no point worrying about it. Quinn said, all we can do is focus on us and do the best we can. Says the useless one, Erin added. The group walked up to one of the stalls that sold all sorts of items that would help with capturing beasts or even killing them. Behind the counter was an old man with a digital monocle over one eye. How can I help you, young soldiers? I guess it's that time again when they send you all out to do your first hunt. We were wondering if you could provide us with a map with all the hunting areas? Vorden asked. Sure I can. That will be a total of 100 credits, though. 100, Layla said. Are you sure you're not trying to rip us off? The old man started laughing. Well, that will be 150 now because of the young lady's rudeness. Vorden brought out a single card that was gold in color. Since the watches didn't work on other planets, each student was to bring their own money card to be used. However, the others noticed the color of Vorden's money card for it was very different from the rest of them. The different colors indicated how much money could be stored on each card. Asterisk beep. Thank you for your business, the old man said. Of course, you're a rich boy, Layla said, looking at the gold card. I don't want to hear another word from you. I may have a gold card, but I only get sent 200 credits a month. You just made me use up most of my allowance. Guys, calm down. I can cover you for the map, Vorden, so don't worry, Quinn said. As Vorden heard those words, he smiled back. He thought Quinn was just being nice. There was no way he would have that type of money. After all, he only received 10 credits a day from school. The group opened up the map, which was on some type of digital paper. On it, the map indicated where they were in different areas around them, which were color-coded. It went from green, orange, and red. The closer the color was to red, the more populated the area was with beasts. But then something caught Quinn's eye. On the top of the map, it had the name of what planet they were on. Caladi. When he fought against Nate a while ago in the VR game, he had asked Nate where his friend had obtained a strong, flexible cape. And the name of the planet, they said, was Caladi, that they had forged it out of a winged creature out in the desert. If this was true, then he might have just found the solution to his sun problem. As the group scanned the map for guidance, they noticed that all the areas closer to the shelter were more green, while the areas that were a bit further away were redder. The one area which had the darkest red of them all was the harsh, sandy desert. Is it possible for users to get a list of the beasts that are in that area? Quinn asked. The man we met at the shop earlier might have one. You could probably go ask him. Let me know if you need any credits. I have a few left. Vorden replied. While the group was discussing on where they should go, Quinn went back to the shop. As they guessed, there was a bestiary. It contained information on all the beasts in the local area. Quinn looked behind him to see the shopkeeper talking to a group of other students. The group seemed to be doing what Quinn's group was doing earlier. Excuse me, how much will a map cost? A student asked the shopkeeper. A map will cost you 100 credits. Does that include those that are registered with the base? Oh, no, of course not. That will cost you just 50 credits, the shopkeeper said with a slight laugh. As Vorden told him before, certain students had already decided that once their 2 years of service finished, they would then join the military. For the students that choose that, they would get special privileges compared to other students while out on missions. And that was especially true when they were in a shelter belonging to them. Annoyed by the fact their group was being mistreated, Quinn decided to pick up the book, which was sealed by a lock so that others couldn't open it and read it unless they paid for it. Quinn, however, had a suspicion that the lock would become irrelevant. Inspect. A book containing information on beasts belonging to the planet Caladi. Teethworm, basic tier beast. Winged lizard, basic tier beast. Burning snake, intermediate tier beast. Please select one to find out more information. It was a success. That's what you get for trying to cheat us. As he looked at the list of names, Quinn was deciding which one of the three was the beast that Nate had talked about. Out of the three of them, only one had matched the description. It was the winged lizard. Winged lizard. Although this beast contains wings, it cannot fly. The wings are often used to spread above its head to intimidate other beasts from attacking. They are also the hardest part of the beast's body. The weak point of the beast is its underbelly. It can be found in the deepest parts of the desert. The description seemed to match the material of Sam's cape, but if Quinn wanted to make a full set of clothing from it, he would definitely need a large amount of beast cores. While he was there, he decided he might as well look at the other beasts. There is always the chance to encounter them, and if they did, it would be handy to know their strengths and weaknesses. Hey you, if you're not buying anything, then get out of here. I was just looking, Quinn said. The old man then walked over and snatched the book out of Quinn's hand. I said, get out now, or else. Quinn stared at the man dead in the eye. People like you deserve to be eaten, Quinn said out loud. What did you say? The old man then lifted his hand. I guess no one taught you to respect your elders. He swung his hand, aiming right towards Quinn's face to give him a big slap. Skill activated days. User has been stunned. Suddenly, as the old man's hand was mid-motion, it was suddenly frozen in place. A second passed, and a shiver was sent down the man's spine. You're lucky that people are around, Quinn said as he walked away. Quinn's blood was boiling. It was people like him that allowed this society to work in the first place. They just watched and let it happen, and although the shopkeeper was weak himself, he still chose to treat the weak differently compared to the strong rather than help others like him. Quinn, you're starting to change. The system thought. When Quinn arrived back at the group, it looked like they had already decided where they would head off to. Did you get the book? Borden asked. No, it was too expensive, Quinn replied. The group had decided that for the first day, they would head to one of the green areas nearby. They were unsure of how powerful the beasts were or what they were like. After defeating a few basic tier beasts, they would make their way into the red zone. Although Quinn was eager to go into the red zone to get his crystals, he was happy with the decision they had made. It was better to be cautious. They only had one life after all, and for the first 2 days, he would be at his weakest. 1 day of sunlight had already passed before they had come here, so there was only 2 more to go. As the group made their way towards their destination, Quinn and Borden were in the lead and were talking about different things. You know, while you were in that shop, Peter kept saying some weird things, Borden said. What do you mean? Quinn responded, confused. Well, the truth is, Erin wanted to head straight to the red zone. She was confident that even if we came across an intermediate beast with the 5 of us, we should be able to take one down. But that's when Peter started to shiver. He was adamant about staying close to the shelter. Do you think they might plan to do something on this trip? Quinn asked. I doubt it. Unlike the red portal places, there are too many people here. Unless we went completely off the map, there would be no way they would dare to try anything. But the important thing is that Peter believes that they will. The group had finally reached the exit where several guards were stood just inside of the wall. The whole shelter was surrounded by Galthrium, so the place was impenetrable to the beasts on this planet's attack. And even then stood up on the wall, there were 2 mechs stood side by side. After declaring they wished to go outside, the gates were opened and the group was free to travel. The area they chose to go to on the map was a small little oasis. There was a hill of sand, and just over it was a pool of water and the first bit of greenery and plant life they had seen. Sure enough, though they weren't the only group that was here, and it looked like the other groups were already engaged in combat. The area was filled with beasts known as teethworms. They would travel under sand, but were easy to spot as a big lump of moving sand was coming towards you. When they were close enough, they would pop out from the sand and open their circular mouth, displaying thousands of small razor-sharp teeth inside. The worms were about the same size as an average dog, but were tricky to deal with for some, as the only time they would emerge from the sand was when they would attack. Peter and Quinn stayed in the middle while they allowed for the others to attack the worms. Vorden and Aaron found it the easiest to deal with the worms. There was no need for her to even use her sword. As the worms jumped in the air, she would throw an ice spike through its mouth, and Vorden would do the same. Layla, on the other hand, found it a little more difficult. When they jumped from the sand, the attack was fast, and they would soon be inside the sand again. Even when using her telekinesis ability, her arrow was too slow. The arrow would hit the sand before even hitting the beast. The only way she could overcome this was to not use her ability at all, and just fire at the worms with no fear. Still, it would take a couple of arrow shots for her before the worms were dead. As Quinn saw the group killing basic beasts left and right, he felt a little sad. Not because he couldn't join in. He was happy that others were fighting, but the fact that all of these kills could have been precious EXP for him. As he had this thought, a familiar voice sounded in his head. You know, if you blooded one of them, you would be able to gain EXP of all their kills. The system said, "What, seriously?" "Yeah, as a vampire you're the one who blooded them, which means they would become a part of your family." Quinn thought about it seriously for a while. Although Vorden had already declined, there was still Layla. She had already asked him to turn her into a vampire, and no, he really could. The only thing that was holding him back was that she was a kind of second blood bank to him. But now Quinn could also rely on Vorden for that. Perhaps it was something he seriously needed to consider. While thinking about whether or not to blood Layla, Quinn decided he would leave it to her and would ask her later, at a time when the sun wasn't out. If she became a vampire or something similar, she would have the same weakness as Quinn right now, and that wouldn't be good for the situation they were in. Not all beasts were hostile, but the teeth worms were definitely that. The slightest vibrations would cause them to react, thinking food was nearby, springing upon its prey and attacking them. Although there were quite a few in number, they didn't have the hindsight to attack together. Unlike the Radiclaws, which were more difficult to deal with. The level of beast didn't generally mean how strong it was, but how strong of a crystal was produced inside its body. There were some basic tiers stronger than others, and this was the same as you went up a tier. Although it was unlikely a basic tier at any strength could match the weakest of an intermediate tier. While the group was busy fighting away on the outside, one of the worms managed to wiggle past their formation and was heading straight for Quinn. "Damn it, that one went right past me," Layla said as she turned around and saw who the worm's new target was. "Quinn," she shouted, but the worm was too fast. It had already locked on and jumped from the sand with its teeth wide open. "It's okay," Quinn replied. As soon as the worm had reached the shade of the umbrella, Quinn grabbed the worm mid-air by the end of its tail. It continued to wiggle around, stretching its body, trying to bite at whatever it was in front of it. "So ugly," Quinn said as he squeezed it tightly with his bare hands. The center of its body was strung like a towel as black blood fell to the floor. Basic beast killed. As long as Quinn stayed underneath the shade of his umbrella, he was at full strength no matter what came after him. For something as simple as a weak basic tier beast like a teeth worm, he could deal with it just using one hand. 10 EXP earned. First teeth worm killed, 100 bonus EXP gained. You are now level 11. 70/200 EXP. Strength 16. Stamina 15. Agility 16. Charm 5. You have received 2 stat points. As expected, just like how the system no longer gave him experience points for fighting low levels in the game, it was now the same for basic tier beasts. Before Quinn would be awarded a 100 EXP per kill now, it was only 10%. However, there was some good news. It was the first time he had leveled up since becoming a full vampire, and he was now receiving 2 stat points instead of 1. He wasn't sure if this was the case if he leveled up again, but it wouldn't make sense if it wasn't. Stamina 16. Charm 6. For now, Quinn decided to put 1 stat point into his stamina. As he did, he felt a little energized. Then for the next one, he put it into his charm stat. Although half a second didn't sound like a long time, Quinn realized when using it in the game how useful it actually was in a fight. The second reason was because he wasn't sure if there was any way he could increase his charm points other than through the free stats. Drinking different blood types increased his strength, stamina, and agility, but he was unsure if it would increase his charm points. When asking the AI system about this, he said it had been a while and forgot. The group had taken out a total of 9 teeth worms together, and slowly the number of teeth worms that were coming towards them started to lessen, allowing Aaron and Vorden to relax a little. Nearby, a mound was seen right next to where Peter was standing. "Was this here before?" Peter said, staring at the thing. The next thing he knew, out from the mound of sand, another teeth worm came jumping out. All panicked, Peter fell to the floor and completely forgot about the earth staff he held on his back. But before the earthworm could reach him, a spear of ice came rushing from the side and killed it in one shot. "I knew I would be carrying most of this team, but I didn't know I would be protecting it as well," Aaron said. "You should at least be able to deal with this type of thing yourself." "Thank you," Peter said. "And I'm sorry, I'm just a bit nervous about the whole thing." Peter wasn't a horrible fighter. He had training from Vorden when the two of them were still friends and learned all the basics. If it was a one-on-one fight with an easy basic tier beast like the worm, then he should have dealt with it fine. But his mind was just far too preoccupied with other things. Even while the others were hunting, he would constantly look around them. Right by the oasis, another group had witnessed the whole thing and couldn't help but laugh at Peter's reaction. They were a group of 5 from a different class. The leader of the group was named Ben, and he wielded a large club on his back. After having a good laugh at the weak Peter, they continued to watch the group and noticed how easily Vorden and Aaron were dealing with the creatures. "Look at that, they're killing so many of the things," one of them said. "Yeah, and they're leaving none for us. If we had an ability as useful as that on the team, we could do the same as well," Ben said. "Boss, watch out," one of them shouted as a teeth worm jumped from his side. He reached out for the club on his back and was ready to slam the thing to pieces. Instead, an ice spear came out from the side and accurately stabbed it through its body and into the sand. It wriggled about for a few moments before stopping completely. "You don't mind if I take that one's beast crystal, do you?" Aaron said, walking over. "Sure, go ahead," Ben replied with a fake smile. While students were busy fighting multiple beasts, it was nearly impossible to obtain the crystals while fighting. It was best for them to fight first until the beasts stopped attacking. Only then would they receive the crystals. This caused an unwritten rule to be made. If you killed the beast, then the beast crystal was rightfully yours. The teeth worms were no longer jumping out and attacking, and now they had time to collect the beast crystals. "How much did we get?" Ben asked. "A total of 4, boss." "Seriously?" As Ben looked over, he noticed that the other group must have obtained over 10, more than double their haul. Then he noticed something else as well. The boy at the back of the group, Peter, didn't seem to gel as well with the others. In fact, it was almost as if they were treating him as an outcast. They weren't talking to him and would hand him crystals to put in the bag every now and again. "You're only as strong as your weakest link," Ben said with a smile. After a successful haul of 15 crystals plus the one that Quinn had obtained, they decided to head back to the shelter. But instead of telling others of the beast he had killed, Quinn decided to keep the crystal for himself in the system. All crystals that were handed into the military base would be counted toward their points. However, the military would keep 10% of whatever they gave in to be counted. So instead, Quinn decided to keep the crystal inside his system, where it couldn't be found and sold later. Just as Del had said to them, the sun was still burning brightly, and it didn't look like it would set anytime soon, but they knew they had been out for at least 6 hours. Traveling to the location and getting ready beforehand, it all took a long time and was quite draining. They then headed straight for the military base, which was located at the center of the shelter. This was a square-like building that had several different departments, but for the next week, just in front of the building was a small stand for students. At the stand was a single adult soldier, and behind him a large digital screen. They handed the man the crystals they had collected, and after counting them, he took 2 of the crystals and retuned the rest back. The digital screen behind him then was suddenly updated. The name Layla could be seen, and the number 15 was displayed next to it. Out of all the numbers on the screen, Layla's name was placed in the middle. Towards the top of the screen were higher numbers, and towards the bottom were lower. Some groups hadn't handed in any crystals yet and had a score of 0. "Hey, do you see that?" Layla said, pointing at the screen. Towards the top, a single group had managed to obtain 30 crystals, almost double the number of crystals their group had. Although Aaron and Vorden were considered strong, that was only true for their class. This didn't mean they were the strongest out of the first years. There were still several other first-year classes. While looking at the board, Quinn also spotted Logan's name, who was second on the leaderboard with 24 points. He hadn't spotted him since this expedition, but knew he would be here since he was a first-year student. I guess that's what a power level 8 can do. He must have some pretty strong teammates with him as well, Quinn thought. After finishing up, it was time for them to rest and sleep for the night. The Solider behind the counter instructed the group where to go next. They did as he ordered and were led to a building near the edge of the shelter. It was a 2-story accommodation block that was used just for students during their outing missions. A room had been given to each team. There were also several blocks nearby for other students, and it didn't seem like there were any residents nearby. When they entered, they were surprised to see how large the space was inside. It was a lot nicer compared to their rooms at the military school. They each had their own individual rooms. There was also a cooking area and a living room. The cost of living was cheap on shelters, so they were able to provide bigger spaces for the students. Before they were to head off to sleep for the night or day, they decided that they should have a group meeting on the kitchen table. The 5 of them were sat down, and Aaron was the first to speak. "I would like to make a suggestion," she said. "As you all know, my goal is to come out as one of the top teams during this assessment. Right now, we're just above average, and I can't accept that. That's why I think tomorrow we should head into the red zone." Peter looked like he was about to say something. Contest against the group, but using her eyes alone, she had shut down Peter, not allowing him to say a word. "I think we're strong enough," Vorden added. "But the problem are these two." The 2 people Vorden was talking about was, of course, Peter and Quinn. To be honest, Quinn wanted to go to the red zone too. Most likely the winged lizard lived there, but he had planned to go there when the day cycle had changed to night. He could use his shadow abilities, but would prefer to use it when nobody was around for now. There was still no way that Quinn could trust Peter to keep a secret if he knew, and then there was Aaron, who he didn't really know much about in the first place. There was also the fact that he didn't know how many beast crystals he needed. If he had obtained them as a group, he would have to equally share them with the group as well. "I thought of that too," Aaron said. "As you can see on the map, there's a safe zone just outside of the red area. Most likely it's a territory where 2 different beasts clash, so they don't cross each other's path. The 2 can wait there while we go inside and attack." After hearing Aaron's suggestion, Quinn didn't think it was too bad. If they were to leave him and Peter alone, then perhaps Quinn could sneak off at some point to hunt the winged lizards on his own. "Well, since the 2 of them haven't rejected the idea, it looks like we have a plan," Aaron said. The group then went to rest for the night. They slept well as it was a tough night for them all, and for the first time, they didn't feel cramped and had space all to themselves. When they woke up, it was time for the group to head off once again. They exited the shelter, and their destination was the red zone. What the group didn't know was another group was following them closely behind. "We just need to wait for the right moment," said Ben. The travel to red zone took longer than to the green zone on their map. It was located quite a while away from the shelter, but the area it covered itself was fairly large as well. It would take 2 hours to travel and 2 hours to go back. With breaks, it meant they roughly had around 6 hours of time to gain crystals. After all, their abilities weren't unlimited. Eventually, the body would use up the MC cells they had, and they needed a period for them to recover back. When leaving in the morning, it looked like their group wasn't the only one heading for the red zone. There was a total of 4 other groups altogether. "That's our competition," Aaron said, looking towards one of the groups who walked in front. "Which one?" Layla asked. "You see the boy at the front with the red hair? It's the trait of the Red Shield family. All originals who learn their magic acquire the ability of fire." "You mean he's from one of the big 4? I didn't realize there was someone in our school like that." Layla replied. Although he isn't anyone special from the family, he is still from one of the big four, and the numbers on yesterday's scoreboard proved it. The ability of fire. Borden looked at the red-haired student for some time, trying to think up of an idea. But the one that interested Quinn wasn't the fire user. Instead, it was Logan, who was also a part of one of the groups heading to the red zone. While the rest of Logan's teammates were walking through the sand, Logan was sitting on top of a strange contraption. It seemed like a moving chair, a personal device that he had built for himself. The legs moved like that off a dog, while the top half was just a normal chair. Inside the chair, he was sitting with his eyes closed, sleeping peacefully. I wonder what his ability really is, Quinn thought. It had to be impressive to be able to get the second highest score. Throughout the whole time the two of them were together, Quinn still hadn't figured it out. And for some reason, Quinn felt like it was rude to ask. Most high levels would keep their abilities secret. If two people were to get in a fight, knowing their ability beforehand was a huge advantage. While the rest of the groups continued to move forward, though, Aaron's group had decided to change direction, slightly heading off to the left. I can't believe we're wasting time, dropping these two off here. Aaron shouted. You don't need to babysit us, Quinn replied. If you care that much about getting ahead of the others rather than protecting our weak asses, then go ahead and leave. After Quinn's words, Aaron did just that and decided to head off back to where the red zone was located. Are you sure you're going to be okay? Borden asked. Don't worry about it. If trouble comes our way, I have a trick up my sleeve to fight them off, Quinn replied. You see that building up ahead? It looks like an abandoned well of some sort. We will wait for you in there, and come get us on the way back. Before leaving, out of Peter's large rucksack, they handed Layla a few food pills and bottles of water that was placed in Layla's small bag. It would be just enough for them while they were away out hunting, and if they needed some more, one of them could always come back and get some from Peter. Boss, it looks like the group have split into two. Maybe the strong ones are heading to the red zone. Who should we follow? One of the men said to Ben. We stick to the plan. Ben said, our group won't be able to compete with all those big shots at the red zone. It was never our intention anyway. I managed to do some research on their group yesterday. It turns out that their group had 2 level 5 powers users, and wait for it, 2 level 1s if you can believe it. Seriously? They must be like the only level 1s in their whole class. Well, now it makes sense why they have split off from the group. They would probably get in the way if they were to fight. If we take their crystals they got yesterday, then we will climb up from the bottom of the leaderboard. We should be able to finish off at a decent position for the test. Back at the red zone, Vorden and the others had finally arrived. Most of the groups had spread out from each other, making sure that they didn't get in the way of each other's hunting process. The red zone was filled with winged lizards, but the area was also slightly different compared to the rest of the sandy desert they had encountered so far. The area was filled with several large rocks that contained large holes on the inside. The holes were where most of the lizards would stay, but there were a few resting on top of the rocks as well. They were quite large in size and were about double the size of the teeth worms from earlier. Before hunting one of the beasts, the group stayed and watched patiently for one of the other groups to attack first. A single person would walk up to the group of lizards and send out an attack, catching the attention of a single beast. Then the person would lead the lizard to the group, and they would all attack it at once. They were being cautious not to attract the attention of all the lizards after all. While attacking the lizard, it seemed to be a much more difficult foe compared to the teethworm. The lizard would constantly block attacks from the beast weapons and certain abilities using the wings attached to its arms. Eventually, they would manage to defeat it. But while the other group struggled, one was finding it easy. And that was the one with the flame user named Berg. Berg's flames were stronger than the beast wings, and it didn't matter what it did. It would be set aflame, and sooner or later the beast would die. Watching this, Vorden had an even bigger smile on his face. Now only if there was some other flame user in our group. After watching the other groups deal with the winged lizards, Vorden and his group decided to implement a similar strategy. Layla would be the first to approach one of the rocks, and then fire out an arrow hitting the foot of one of the lizards. After using her ability, she was able to take the arrow back out and swirl it around the beast's head like an annoying fly. The lizard followed the arrow easily, and now it was Vorden and Aaron's turn to deal with the beast. A trail of ice started to form across the floor, eventually trapping the lizard's forelegs. Now that its movements were restricted, it was Vorden's turn. He created ice spikes in his hand and continued to throw them at the lizard. But even with its feet tied, its arms were still free to move. It blocked each one of its attacks, lifting its wings and shelling up like a turtle. "You idiot," Ratton said. "You know from watching the others that it won't work. Either shut up or help." Vorden shouted as he continued to throw the ice spikes. Eventually, Vorden knew the beast would get tired, and it wasn't as if his attacks were doing no damage at all. But proceeding this way would take far too long. Before he knew it, he could see Erin up in the air with her long sword held in her hand. As she fell to the ground, she sliced downward at the beast's wing. A large gash was made, and black blood started to pour out. A few seconds later, though, the wound that was created started to freeze. Slowly, the ice began to grow until it completely froze the beast's left wing. Now, with one wing frozen in place, Vorden was finally able to throw an ice spear directly into its body, killing it. "Did we finally do it?" Layla said, looking at the thing. She quickly extracted the crystal and placed it inside her small bag for now. "This is a problem," Erin said. "It is taking us far too long to kill a single one of them. Even if there are many, it takes 3 of us just to kill one. We will be better off searching for another group of teeth worms at this point." Then they heard cheering coming from their left side. The group with Berg in charge had just finished burning 5 of them to a crisp at once. The look on Erin's face was currently one with disgust. "Come on, let's just go into one of the other areas and find a bunch of teeth worms to deal with." "Hold on," Vorden shouted. "I have a plan." Berg and his group had just killed their 8th lizards and were currently resting for a bit. He needed some time to recover his MC points before he could use his abilities again. "I still have a long way to go," Berg said, looking at his hand. Although his flame powers were strong, and he was considered one of the strongest in school, he couldn't say the same about his family. They would have been able to go on for a lot longer and create more powerful flames. Every original family was different when it came to teaching their members about their powers. They had their own methods, and for the Red Shields, it was all about discovery. After teaching them the basics, they had to learn about the ability themselves and get stronger. "Hey, Berg, watch out," a voice from the side said. As he looked up, he noticed a human body was flying his way, and before he knew it, they had crashed into him. The 2 of them tumbled into the sand and eventually stopped. "That bitch! How could she do that to her own teammate?" Vorden said as he lifted himself off the ground. "I'm sorry about that. Do you need a hand?" Just then Vorden reached out his hand and lifted Berg. "Hey, what do you guys think you're doing?" Another person said as he came running over. "You just barged into our leader." "Enough Lippy," said Berg. "I'm sure it was an accident." Lippy, who was also a part of Berg's team, was surprised by his actions. If a person usually did something like this, he would have burnt them by now. But the reason was simple. When Berg looked at Vorden's watch, it currently displayed the power level of 8 on it. Not knowing what Vorden's powers were, and the possibility there was someone of equal strength to himself, he didn't want to get into a fight. "We're sorry," Layla said as she came running over with Erin behind. "Our idiot teammate was being annoying, and I just needed to throw him somewhere." "Don't worry about it," Berg said. "Accidents happen." After apologizing, the 3 of them decided to leave the group B and go hunting once again. Vorden, now having the flame abilities, was ready to burn some lizards. "Why did you let them go off like that?" Lippy asked. "That person, he was a level 8 user. Let's keep an eye on them for a little bit," Berg said. Nearly everyone already knew of Berg's abilities due to him coming from one of the Big 4 families. However, the same couldn't be said for the other high-level users or originals. Keeping an eye on Vorden was keeping an eye on the competition. Berg had seen the group just go behind one of the stones. Although he wasn't paying much attention to them before, he was sure that their group was hunting on the same side of the rock like them. Why did they choose to move? He thought. The curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to go scout out and hunt a bit closer to where Vorden had gone. After walking around one of the large rocks in the center, he could see Vorden and his team. Just as Berg saw them, he could see Vorden burning one of the winged lizard using his fire powers. "What? But how?" Lippy said. "Is he part of the Red Childs?" "No, I've never seen him in my life. It looks like we've got some questions to ask. Before doing anything drastic, the group wanted to test out Vorden's new fire abilities. They did same as before with Layla drawing out one of the lizards and then Aaron freezing the lizard's movements. When they were ready, Vorden shot out a stream of fire from the palm of his hands. The beast screamed and howled in pain. After a few seconds, the beast caught on fire, and Vorden no longer had to supply it with energy. At this moment, Berg had just turned the corner and witnessed the whole thing. His mind was going crazy with thoughts. Did someone outside of the family know how to use the fire abilities? If that was the case, they needed to get rid of him before anyone else knew or found out. While Aaron was busy carving out the beast to find its crystal, a fireball was spotted coming towards them. "Look out!" Layla shouted. At the last second, Vorden turned his head and fired a fireball of his own equal in size. As the two fireballs clashed, a small explosion was created, and sparks of flame flew out onto the sound. "You must be dealt with. No one is allowed to learn the secrets of the flame." Berg shouted. Shooting out fire from the palm of his hands, he was able to propel himself forward while running, making him move at an incredible speed. Vorden readied his self, planning to fight back with anything Berg would use. If Berg shot out a fireball, Vorden would retaliate with the same. If Berg shot out a stream of fire or made a pillar of fire, then Vorden would do the same, only better. This was how Vorden had won all his fights before. His experience when it came to fighting was able to outmatch those that knew their own abilities inside and out. But then at the last second, Berg propelled himself into the air. A stream of fire was seen coming from the bottom of his hands and feet. It looked almost like he was flying in the air. Spinning flame kick. Using one of his legs, the fire would shoot out from the back of his heel, causing him to spin. Then with the other leg would let out multiple blades of fire. "Damn it, I can't do that," Vorden shouted. As the blades of fire were coming towards them, Vorden lifted both hands, creating a small wall of fire. If Vorden thought he was safe, though, he was wrong. As the blades of fire touched the wall, it ripped right through and continued to go past. By now, Layla and Aaron had long moved to the side and become spectators of the whole thing, and the same could be said for Berg's teammates as well. It was clear that all of his attacks were aimed at a single person, and he didn't care for the rest of the team. "What is going on?" Aaron asked. "I don't know, but I do know Vorden knows how to annoy a load of people. Perhaps this is just one of them," Layla said. Although Vorden's flame wall was useless, he was able to see the point of when the flames would touch the wall, for they would slightly part away a piece of his wall just before the blades of fire touched. This gave him enough time to dodge every single one of the blades coming at him. "This guy is pretty good," Lippy said, watching the whole thing from the side. The second Berg landed on the ground, he dashed forward, using the flames once again to propel him. Vorden fired fireball after fireball, but then Berg just covered his hands in flames and would knock them away. "Looks like your fire is no stronger than mine, you thief," he shouted. Then with his hands covered in flames, he went for a punch towards Vorden's face. Vorden could see the punch coming towards him. When it came to hand-to-hand combat, he was skilled and had years of experience as well. He could see it coming and was planning to duck, but suddenly the fist sped up in an instant and knocked Vorden into the ground with his head bouncing off the sand. Vorden laid on the ground, unmoving with his eyes closed. Although Vorden was unable to see what had just happened, the rest did. When Berg threw the punch, he had done nothing special, but it was what had happened at the last moment. Berg had the ability to produce fire from any part of his body. The clothes he was wearing were specially designed by his family, so they wouldn't burn away. As the last second before the fist was to hit Vorden, he had produced a strong flame from his elbow, pushing his fist forward and giving it an extra boost. Vorden was used to elemental abilities, but had never come across the fire one before. It was an original ability, unlike ice, wind, earth, and water. However, none of these acted like the flames which came from the body itself. With the destructive nature of fire as well, it was why it was considered one of the strongest elements. "What should we do?" Layla asked. "Should we go over and help him?" "I don't think they'll kill him," Aaron replied. "There are too many people here he would have to silence." "Well, he is from the Big Four, right? Would the school really do anything?" The two of them at that moment looked at each other. To be honest, Aaron hated this feeling but she knew when someone was stronger than her. Berg hadn't even taken a single hit from Vorden, and she feared if it was her, it would have been the same result. Standing right over Vorden's was Berg. He continually looked at Vorden's still body. "Why isn't Boss doing anything?" Lippy said as he watched. He couldn't explain it himself, but for some reason, he felt like if he touched Vorden at this moment, he would be the one lying on the ground. Then a few seconds later, Vorden's eyes opened. Inside the dark black room, Vorden had finally woken up. "Whoa, man, you sucked," Ratton said. "That guy really showed you." "Wait a second," Vorden replied. "If you're here, then who's in the chair?" Quinn and Peter had been walking for a good 15 minutes as they headed to what looked like a little abandoned well, something that was once used to draw water out. It was used at a time when the shelter was first being built by the workers. Although building works, and such didn't take as long as they used to, especially since the introduction of Earth ability users. Some powerful users would charge quite a bit for their service as they were able to construct building after building. While the two of them were walking, not one of them had said a word to each other, and Quinn was the type that hated an awkward silence between two people. In the end, he gave in and just had to say something. "Why did you do it?" Quinn said. Peter didn't have to ask what he was talking about. It was as clear as day. They continued walking for a while longer until eventually Peter replied, "I don't want to make any excuses. I know what I did was terrible. Everything. I don't even deserve to speak to you. But you don't understand, Quinn. I was scared. They had already gone for Vorden and managed to catch him. Then they went after me and—" "Enough." Quinn snapped back. "I don't want to hear any more. You were right the first time when you said you weren't going to make any excuses. But then you went on to list a bunch of excuses. I'm not saying you didn't have a reason for why you did it. When someone does something wrong, everyone has a reason, be it good or bad, but after everything we had done for you, why didn't you come to us? Could you really help me, Quinn? Would you be saying the same thing if you knew who was behind everything?" Peter asked. "Did you give us a chance?" Quinn replied, "Do you know the saying, you miss all the shots you don't take? We were right there next to you the whole time, and it wasn't like stuff like this didn't happen before. You saw what happened to Vorden. Did he change? And you should know more than anyone that I got the same treatment as you from my old school." The two of them had finally arrived at the village, and Quinn turned around to look at Peter. He could see his teary face, tears on top of tears running down, and he was using his sleeves to wipe everything away. "When you chose to go against us that day, Peter, you were the one who had given up. You didn't try taking a shot and made your chances go down to zero." The two of them looked around the abandoned well. In the center was a giant machine used to draw water. It had rusted, and just from looking at it, you could tell it hadn't been used in a while. The only other thing in the place were two abandoned buildings. One room was completely bare apart from a single window, while the other building had a couple of broken wooden bed frames. After taking off the rucksack and putting on the old bed, Peter finally laid down and was getting some rest. He had managed to carry the large backpack all the way through the desert, and unlike Quinn, he didn't have supernatural strength to help him. The heat didn't actually affect Quinn much, no more than it did when he was a human. It seemed like the sun must have contained some other unique property that affected vampires. As long as he stood under his umbrella, he felt absolutely fine. But thinking about this, it reminded him he desperately needed those beast cores. If he wanted to craft a special material, he couldn't rely on Vorden and Layla to gather enough. Then finally, he would be free from the restraints of the sun. "I'm going to go exploring around for a little bit. Are you all right to stay here?" "Don't worry. I won't be going too far." "Are you sure you're going to be safe?" Peter said. "Yeah. As long as you aren't behind my back, I'll have nothing to worry about," Quinn said jokingly. "Sorry, that was a low blow." Quinn pictured the map in his head. He remembered the red zone was quite a large circular area. They had just come from the left direction, which was where Vorden and the others went. So as long as Quinn went right and forward, he should be in a different area of the red zone. With that, he decided to head off into the desert with his umbrella in his hand. Watching all of this happen was Ben and his group. "It looks like the two of them have split up. You three go for the kid with the umbrella. Take off everything, even his money card, and get him to transfer everything over. Me and Hugo will go get rid off the other one." They did as told, and three of their men went off to follow Quinn into the desert. while Ben and his friend Hugo had decided to enter the same building that Peter was in. Just as Peter was about to shut his eyes, he heard footsteps enter the room. "Oh, what a surprise we have here," Ben said. "I didn't expect anyone to be so far out here in the middle of nowhere. And when I looked earlier, it seemed like not a single person was around." In the desert, before Quinn had even reached the red zone, he could hear the sounds of people getting closer to him. His vision wasn't as great in the sunlight. It was about the only thing that was still affected while in the sun. But his hearing was always top-notch. "Who sent you?" Quinn said without turning around. "That's none of your business now, is it?" One of the students said. "Now you better listen to what we say, or else." "Or else what?" Quinn said as he turned. "I'm sorry some people think I'm a bit slow." The students then lifted up their watches to each reveal their levels. One was a level 4 student, and the other 2 level 3s. "I hope you understand," the level 4 user said. "Oh, I see. Because you're a higher level than me, I should be scared now, right? I should obey everything you do because I don't want to be hurt." Skill Active Shadow Void. Suddenly, from underneath Quinn's feet, his shadow started to spread. It grew and grew until it encompassed a large area in complete darkness. The shadows that formed the walls were continually moving. From the outside, it looked like a giant cloud storm. Quinn then tapped his watch 3 times and lifted it up for them to see. The number had changed. He was now a level 6. Vorden stood there, standing in the sand. He hadn't moved for a few seconds now, and his head was facing the floor. From the top of his head, a trickle of blood was dripping down onto his forehead, and little by little droplets would fall to the ground. "Why is the boss just standing there?" Lippy asked. The truth was Berg couldn't explain it himself. Something about the person he was facing a few seconds ago had suddenly changed. He felt the same presence as when he was just about to face one of the elders in his own family. Then for the first time since being beaten to the floor, Vorden had moved. He lifted his hand and wiped the blood away before staring at it on his sleeve. "You guys said you would protect me." "Hey, don't look at me, Syl," Ratton said. "Vorden was the one who got knocked out before I could even do anything. Maybe it's time for a change." Syl said. "What? And leave this person in charge?" Vorden argued. "If you do this, you'll be lonelier than before. Even Quinn won't stay by your side." "Quinn? Ah, yes, Quinn," Syl said as he looked around at where he was. "I don't see any Quinn. This will be good." Ratton said, "Hey, Syl, that man in front of you is hiding Quinn from us." Syl then looked at Berg up and down and started to walk towards him. But his face wasn't peaceful or anything. It was like that of a demon. The anger could be felt, the emotion, everything. Berg could feel it just coming from his face. "Stay back," Berg shouted as he covered his forearms and fist in flames once again. As Syl took another step forward, Berg was at his limit and knew he needed to attack now. Placing both hands together, he started to fire a pillar of flames from his hand like a flamethrower. As the fire came towards him, Syl swung his hands, lifting a pile of sand with it and dropping it straight on the flames, causing it to extinguish. "When did he get my ability?" Layla said, watching the fight. "And why is it stronger than mine? I could never lift that amount of sand." "Vorden's ability is strange," Aaron said. "But if I remember correctly, he could control 2 abilities. Perhaps it has something to do with that." Seeing this, Berg too was shocked. He had thought Vorden was just someone who had learnt the family secret, maybe tortured one of their members into teaching it to them. But now suddenly, he was using another ability. How is this possible? While Berg was shocked by the whole thing, he started to feel an icy presence climb up from his feet. "What is this?" he said as he saw his 2 legs freezing. In an instant, he activated the fire to cover his legs, causing it to melt the ice. But all Syl wanted to do was stall him for a second or so, as he formed an ice spear and threw it directly at his shoulder. It landed and pierced Berg, but he couldn't complain long as pillars of fire were already rising from the ground. "He has your ice abilities as well," Layla said. "That's 3 abilities. Just how strong is Vorden really?" While using one hand to cast pillars of fire, the other hand would continue to throw ice spears. Berg could only dodge these 2 attacks for so long. "Come on, he has to be running out of MC soon," Berg said. Inside the black room, Ratton was busy laughing. "I bet you this guy thinks he can win the match as long as he waits for Syl to tire out." "Well, that's not happening." Right now, Vorden contained 3 abilities. Whenever he copied a person's ability, he also copied the amount of MC points in their body. This was also the same for all the other abilities he stored inside his body. But Vorden's ability and cells were unique. As long as he had copied an ability, he would be able to change any of the MC cells into whatever type he wanted. Using the fire ability was a level 8 ability, Aaron's ability was a level 5, and Lael's ability was a level 2. This meant he had a huge amount of MC points to use, and if he wanted to like earlier, he would be able to change all his cells into one type of MC, which was why Syl was able to lift the sand to take out the fire, while Layla would have never been able to achieve something like that with her ability. As the fight continued, Berg could tell that Vorden wasn't tiring out. He needed to act fast, as fire came from his right and ice came from his left. Berg crouched into a fetal position and started to let the fire build up inside him. Then when the attacks were right by his side, he expanded his limbs, and out came a sphere of fire, getting rid of all the attacks. But now Berg was panting and sweating hard. It was a last-ditch effort to protect himself, but he really didn't know what to do after this. "Where is Quinn?" Syl asked as he walked over. Layla and Aaron were too far to hear any of the words Vorden had spoken, but were worried that he might do something drastic. "Crazy boy, I beg you don't do something crazy," Layla said. "Wait," Vorden shouted. Ratton was lying. "Quinn is safe, he's somewhere else. Let me take over, and I can show you." "You damn rat, Vorden," Ratton shouted back. "Now I'm going to get my ass handed to me." "I'm tired," Syl said. Now Vorden had finally reached where Berg was standing. "I don't want to make an enemy of you, but you attacked us first," Vorden said. Suddenly the feeling Berg once had now was gone. When he looked at Vorden, it was the same as before. "I'm from the Blade family. It's probably best if our two families don't get into a confrontation with each other." As soon as Berg had heard Vorden's second name, he finally understood. The Blade family weren't as big as the Big Four, but that was because they chose not to be. They were a secretive family that didn't choose to have much influence in the world. Because of this, not many knew about them. Berg didn't really understand why, but his father had always said if he was to meet someone from the Blades, to show absolute respect. Berg placed his head in the ground and started to apologize. "I'm sorry. It's my fault that this all has happened. Is there anything I can do for you?" Vorden thought about it for a while. He hated to use his family name like this, but he was sure at least the Big Four would know of it, but while he was using it, he might as well take advantage. "It's okay, but I'm going to have you hand over your crystals you got today and yesterday over to us," Vorden said, smiling. "Of course." While Aaron, Layla, and the others watched this scene, they couldn't believe what was happening. They knew Vorden was an original, they even knew of his family name, but they had never heard of the Blade family before. But for some reason, someone from the Big Four was bowing down to him, apologizing and even handing over their crystals. "Just who are you, Vorden?" Layla thought.